However, right in front of Sumo, there was indeed a white jade staircase with a high platform. On the platform, there was also a female cultivator. The female cultivator was sitting on a large chair on a high platform. He was not lazy. She wore a green dress, and her appearance was extremely beautiful. However, her expression was solemn, and there was not the slightest bit of seductiveness. She was Chu Xiangxiang. His current appearance was like a completely different person compared to before. Behind her were still the two female cultivators. Young Master Su, you are indeed formidable. Chu Xiangxiang smiled faintly. Same to you. Same to you. Sumo put away the ancient secular fan and smiled faintly. Young Master Su, how did you discover my flaw? Chu Xiangxiang asked, puzzled. Because in the Carefree Hall, Sumo was the first cultivator to discover that it was not her real body. There must be something fishy about this abnormality. Sumo smiled coldly. If the Blissful Palace is really a place that hides filth, I don't think it would have a foothold in the Netherworld City. How could a truly frivolous woman cultivate to the consummate level of the undead realm? Moreover, there are many illusory techniques in the Bliss Palace. Just now, Sumo was just gambling. I was lucky. I made the right bet. Sumo said again. All the illusions just now were indeed illusions. Chu Xiangxiang looked at Sumo meaningfully. Young Master Su, why are you being so modest? Actually, you weren't gambling just now. Gambling always has a winner and a loser. Just now you won. Whether it was an illusion or not, it was worth it for you to make a move. Killing a palace master of the Bliss Palace is nothing to you, young master. Oh, huh. Sumo could not help but laugh when she heard that. Miss Chu, you are indeed wise. But, young Master Su, have you really thought about the consequences? This is the Bliss Palace. You're just a middle-stage, undead realm cultivator. What makes you so bold as to destroy my great technique? A hint of anger flashed across Chu Xiangxiang's face. Great technique? Sumo shook her head in disbelief. Palace Master Chu, don't try to deceive my ignorance. If an illusory technique of that level is a great technique, then this Bliss Palace is really nothing. As she spoke, Sumo flipped her hand and a ray of black light instantly radiated from the center of her palm. Whoosh, then Sumo flipped her palm. The black light suddenly dispersed and turned into a human figure. Looking again, there was already an identical Sumo standing next to Sumo. Moreover, Sumo was also holding an ancient mortal fan in her hand. Sumo greets Miss Chu. The transformed Sumo smiled and cupped her hands at Chu Xiangxiang. At the same time, Sumo's figure turned slightly. In an instant, the two Sumos had already exchanged their positions several times. Palace Master Chu, which one is me? The two Sumos spoke at the same time. This. Chu Xiangxiang frowned. Although she was a full-fledged, undead realm cultivator, she really could not distinguish the real Sumos. The two Sumos were exactly the same in terms of appearance, aura, clothing, and so on. Hee. The two Sumos sneered at the same time. Palace Master Chu, let me tell you, both of them are me. Looking again, the two Sumos were moving closer to the center and gradually merged into one. That scene left Chu Xiangxiang dumbfounded. Even the two female cultivators behind her had a look of disbelief on their faces. You're not a netherworld cultivator. Chu Xiangxiang looked at Sumo and said, Oh. The corner of Sumo's mouth curled up. Why do you say that? Because that technique just now was definitely not a netherworld technique. Chu Xiangxiang said with certainty. Hee. Sumo sneered and said nothing. In fact, Chu Xiangxiang was right. That was indeed not a netherworld technique. In fact, it was even a hidden undead technique. The technique Sumo used just now was merely a transformation of the twin demons. Who are you? Chu Xiangxiang raised an eyebrow and asked. I'm here to look for someone. Sumo did not answer Chu Xiangxiang's question. Zhao Xiu? Chu Xiangxiang sneered and said, What's there to look for about that piece of trash who's struggling in the Palace of Death? He can't even pass the Palace of Death. Hee. Sumo looked at Chu Xiangxiang and said, It seems that the Bliss Palace is indeed connected. From the moment the four of us entered the Bliss Palace, everything about us has been exposed to the Bliss Palace. hasn't it? Of course, Chu Xiangxiang said. Anyone who enters the Bliss Palace will be rewarded. Everything about you is naturally under our surveillance. What can you do? What about my friends? Sumo's expression darkened. They're still in the Palace of Death. Chu Xiangxiang smirked. If they can't pass the Palace of Death, they'll be trapped there forever. Their lives won't be in danger. Zhao Xiao is in that kind of situation. The power of his spirit is just too weak. The Palace of Death tests one's spirit, Sumo thought to herself. At the same time, she breathed a sigh of relief. Be it Yi Kansheng or Yu Wuji, the power of their spirits would not be too weak. Palace Leader Chu, Zhao Xiao is indeed the person I'm looking for. Sumo smiled and said, however, I have another important person to look for. Who? Chu Xiangxiang asked. Her surname is Linghu, and her name is He Huan. Chu Xiangxiang's expression changed when she heard what Sumo said. Chapter 467. Linghu He Huan. This name might be a legend to ordinary Netherworld cultivators, but it was taboo to the people of Nether City. It was a taboo that couldn't be explained clearly. The Tang, Li, Mo, Bai, and Linghu clans controlled everything in Nether City. In name, Nether City had an Elder Council, but in reality, the elders of the Elder Council were only the representatives of the 5 clans. The 5 clans were definitely above the Elder Council of Nether City. Among them, the Linghu clan reigned supreme. Otherwise, the Linghu clan wouldn't have monopolized the 15th level of Nether City. There was even a rumor among the cultivators of Nether City that the Linghu clan had a relationship with the city lord of Nether City. However, none of this had been proven. Linghu Hehuan's slumber was no secret in Nether City. The reason for her slumber was a mystery. No one knew why an undying beauty had appeared in the Linghu clan. In fact, many people didn't even know when Linghu Hehuan had been born and when she had fallen asleep. The Linghu clan had always been tight-lipped about those matters. Moreover, the Linghu clan had decreed that anyone who talked about Linghu Hehuan without permission would be killed. Therefore, Linghu Hehuan was a taboo. The cultivators of Nether City didn't dare to talk about it. Sumo was looking for Linghu Hehuan. How could Chu Xiangxiang's expression not change? What did you say? Chu Xiangxiang asked again, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. I'm looking for Linghu Hehuan. Sumo narrowed her eyes and asked in a low voice, is there something wrong? Who are you? Chu Xiangxiang raised an eyebrow. How dare you speak so carelessly? As she spoke, Chu Xiangxiang suddenly emitted a powerful pressure and instantly flew straight towards Sumo. However, she didn't use any treasures. Instead, she formed a claw with one hand and grabbed at Sumo. Zzzt. Zzzt. Chu Xiangxiang's fingernails were 3 inches long and glowed with a mysterious light. They looked as sharp as hooks. That must be an extremely special cultivation technique. The sound of air being torn rang out. Chu Xiangxiang moved like lightning and grabbed Sumo's throat. With one hand. HM? Sumo was shocked. Although he had been on guard, he did not expect Chu Xiangxiang to suddenly make a move. Seeing that Chu Xiangxiang was about to grab her, Sumo slightly leaned to the side. At the same time, the ancient mortal fan in his hand, with a hua sound, forcefully chopped down, sweeping towards Chu Xiangxiang's wrist. There was a big gap between the two of them in terms of cultivation. Chu Xiangxiang's attack missed, so she quickly changed her move and flipped her wrist. Her wrist actually bypassed the red dust fan and grabbed Sumo's wrist instead. Sumo was shocked. Chu Xiangxiang was indeed formidable. Who? Sumo repeated the same trick, and the red light on the red dust fan spread out. The skeletal arms stretched out once again. It turned into a streak of white light and grabbed Chu Xiangxiang's neck. Even Chu Xiangxiang was taken aback. The 3 old-style moves happened in the time it takes for sparks to fly off a flint. Both of them changed their moves extremely quickly. At this moment, Sumo relied on the divine weapon in her hand and instantly forced Chu Xiangxiang to retreat. Who? With a thought from Sumo, the golden skeleton in the red dust fan was already completely suspended in the carefree palace. Chu Xiangxiang's figure floated, and she actually landed on the large chair on the high platform. Young Master Su, good move. Chu Xiangxiang smiled. At the same time, her gaze slightly focused on Sumo's golden skeleton. This skeleton is not bad, but it is definitely not from the netherworld. Same to you, Sumo said with a smile. It's just a skeleton puppet, not worthy of Palace Master Chu's discerning eyes. Young Master Su, you are too modest, Chu Xiangxiang said. Palace Master Chu, after you have tested the origin of my technique, can we talk about Linghu Yihuan now? Su Mo looked at Chu Xiangxiang, then closed his paper fan, and the immortal skeleton automatically retracted. Young Master Su, you are indeed meticulous. You knew my intention the moment I made my move. Chu Xiangxiang smiled faintly, then said seriously, to be honest, young Master Su, discussing Princess Linghu in Nether City is a crime punishable by death. However, the 3 moves just now, in addition to my previous observation, I can now confirm that you are indeed not a cultivator of Nether City. Before this, I always suspected that you were a spy sent by someone with ulterior motives. Hee. Sumo shook her head. Palace Master Chu, you worry too much. Sumo's identity is clean, and she has no connections with any forces in the netherworld. She has no relatives or friends in Nether City. Oh, then what about the cultivator from the Illusion God sect? Chu Xiangxiang asked. He's a special case. Of course, there is also Zhao Xiao. If possible, I would like to ask Zhao Xiao a few questions. That is my personal matter, Sumo said honestly. As for the Illusion God sect, I am not familiar with them. Chu Xiangxiang nodded and pondered for a moment, as if thinking of something. Young Master Su, you seem to be a special existence in Nether City. Chu Xiangxiang looked at Sumo seriously. It is not a problem if you want to see Zhao Xiao. However, if you want to ask about Princess Linghu, you must give me a good reason. A good reason? Hee. Sumo laughed. Of course I have a reason. Moreover, it must be a good reason. However, before that, I would like Palace Master Chu to tell me about the Bliss Palace. What kind of existence is your sect? Sumo asked. Oh, hee. That is not a high requirement. In fact, any cultivator who stepped into the Bliss Palace would know about it. Moreover, young Master Su came out of the Hall of Dreams in less than 7 days. Chu Xiangxiang was more than happy to answer Sumo's question. 7 days? Sumo could not help but be taken aback. The way he saw it, he had stayed in the Hall of Dreams for more than 2 hours at most. He did not expect it to be 7 days. That's right, 7 days. Chu Xiangxiang smiled proudly. However, young Master Su is already the first person to challenge the Bliss Palace. Challenge? The first person to challenge the Bliss Palace? Sumo did not understand. Hee. The people of a netherworld realm say that the Bliss Palace is a land of gentleness and a tomb for heroes. All female cultivators are sluts, but that is not the case. Chu Xiangxiang smiled sweetly. That smile was not frivolous at all. Instead, it was extremely beautiful. Everything is just a facade. Chu Xiangxiang smiled bitterly. However, the Bliss Palace can indeed help the cultivators of the netherworld reach a state of bliss. Oh, Sumo was taken aback. The Bliss Palace is divided into 4 halls: drunken life, dying dream, carefree, and immortal desire. The female cultivator who guided us here has already told you about them, young Master Su. These 4 great halls are actually training grounds. What are the training grounds for? Sumo asked. Drunken life, dying dream, carefree, and immortal desire. These 4 halls are arranged in ascending order, Chu Xiangxiang said. The Drunken Life Hall transcends life and death. The Hall of Dreams is used to temper the soul. The Hall of Carefree is used to compete in magical techniques. If you pass all 3 halls, you can reach the Hall of Immortal Desire. If you are fated, you can obtain the method to transcend the tribulation in the Hall of Immortal Desire. The method to transcend the tribulation? Sumo was taken aback. A method that can help the cultivators of Nether City transcend the tribulation of life and death? Yes. Chu Xiangxiang nodded and smiled. Young Master Su, you know quite a lot. So, for the cultivators of Nether City, don't you think that the Bliss Palace can help them transcend the tribulation of life and death? Chapter 468. The life and death tribulation was actually the time of death. At least, that was the case for most Nether City cultivators. Therefore, to be able to obtain a chance to go through a life and death tribulation was truly akin to bliss. The Bliss Palace is indeed powerful. Sumo smiled and said, "It seems that the forces behind you are quite formidable." Chu Xiangxiang smiled faintly and did not say anything. This was tantamount to tacitly agreeing with what Sumo said. Actually, this was not difficult to guess. As long as one had some understanding of the distribution of power in Nether City, it would not be difficult to think of this. Without the support of the 5 clans, the Bliss Palace would not have been able to do what they did. The Bliss Palace was probably carrying out the will of the 5 clans. Palace Master Chu, the 4 great palaces have to be cleared one by one in order to have a chance of ascending to paradise. Then why did the 4 of us enter the Dream Death Palace? Sumo asked again. That's my opinion. Chu Xiangxiang said, that day, the cultivators who were able to come out of the 8 trigrams lake of the ancient coin mystic realm must have seen through life and death. That cultivator from the Divine Fantasy sect is really taking advantage of you. Oh, Sumo smiled. Palace Master Chu is right. But I want to ask, what happens if I can't pass the Hall of Death? Is it possible that I will be trapped in the palace for the rest of my life? Hee hee. Chu Xiangxiang also laughed. If you can't see through it, the best outcome is to be trapped in the Dream Death Palace. The worst outcome is that your soul will be completely exhausted and you will die. I think young master, Su must have seen such a cultivator just now. That's why I said that you've thrown us into the lion's den. Life and death are up to fate. Sumo sneered. Fortunately, we still have some skills. Of course the 3 of you are capable. If you don't believe me, look. Chu Xiangxiang waved her hand. One of the walls of the hall instantly turned transparent. It turned out that there was another hall next to the one Sumo was in. It was none other than the carefree hall that Su Mo had just entered, which was shrouded in a mortal fog. At this time, Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji were already standing in the hall. Their eyes were very clear. They have already come out. Chu Xiangxiang exclaimed in admiration. Your divine souls are all incomparably powerful. Looks like all these fantasies can't move your hearts at all. All of you can defeat yourselves. Sumo didn't say anything after hearing this. He had no idea what Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji had gone through. However, if he did not have the strength of the green-robed, white-haired cultivator, it would not have been easy for him to walk out of the Palace of Death. Who? As soon as Chu Xiangxiang finished speaking, 2 more figures appeared in the hall. Sumo recognized that one of them was Li Ziliang. The other middle-aged cultivator was none other than Zhao Xiao. Li Ziliang's expression was calm. However, Zhao Xiao's face was extremely pale. He had been trapped in the Deathly Dreams Palace for many years. If he could not get out of the Deathly Dreams Palace, he would most likely be in deep trouble. Now his soul had finally passed the test. Hee hee. I'm afraid that Zhao Xiao is indebted to all of you. Chu Xiangxiang said. However, with his condition, I'm afraid he will pass the Carefree Hall. As she spoke, Chu Xiangxiang waved her hand. The 2 female cultivators behind her slowly transformed and left. They are the examiners? Sumo asked. You can say that, Chu Xiangxiang said. However, they won't personally participate. They will only supervise everything. The cultivators here have already been divided according to their ranks. Only those of the same rank have the right to enter the Hall of Immortal Desire after winning 3 battles. 3 battles? Sumo shook her head. It seems like the battles here are not easy. What about the cultivators who can't even win 3 battles? Hee hee. Unfortunately, they will end up the same as the Deathly Dreams Palace. They will either be trapped here or wait for their souls to be destroyed. Chu Xiangxiang spoke casually. Sumo sneered and said, in other words, once you enter the Blissful Palace, you will either have to pass the 4 halls and obtain the method to overcome the tribulation, or die. Hee hee. That would be considered ascending to paradise. That's right. Chu Xiangxiang nodded and looked at Sumo. However, young Master Su, cultivation has always been a cruel thing. Isn't that so? Moreover, Even if they don't enter the blissful palace, they will still be stuck at the advanced stage of the undying realm. The blissful palace is merely giving them a chance to fight for their lives. What's so bad about that? Sumo only smiled and did not comment. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Chu Xiangxiang's words did not sound wrong, but Sumo knew that the blissful palace must have something to ask of her. Why would they give other cultivators the chance to overcome the tribulation for no reason? Of course, Chu Xiangxiang seemed to know what Sumo was thinking and immediately changed the topic. The blissful palace is not selfless. There are gains and losses. The cultivators who obtain the method to overcome the tribulation will have to pay a certain price as well. What price? Sumo asked. You will know when you enter the Hall of Immortal Desire, young master. Chu Xiangxiang kept Su Lingyue in suspense. Don't I have to fight 3 rounds? Sumo asked with a smile. Young Master Su is our special guest. There's no need for that now. Moreover, you don't seem to need the method to overcome the tribulation, Chu Xiangxiang said. Sumo clapped her hands with her ancient fan and did not say anything else. Young Master Su, let's see if they can overcome the Hall of Freedom with me. Let's watch the first round. Chu Xiangxiang raised her hand again. Whoosh! The wall split into 4 and turned into 4 images. Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, Li Ziliang, and Zhao Xiu each occupied one of the images. At that moment, the 4 of them were completely separated from each other. Each of them seemed to be in a hall of their own. Sumo watched everything with a calm expression. This was because both Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji would not have any problems encountering cultivators of the same level. As a matter of fact, that was indeed the case. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji both had cold smiles on their faces. They were once at the pinnacle of the 3 realms. The scene in front of them was nothing to them. On the other hand, Li Ziliang frowned slightly, looking slightly nervous. A trace of fear flashed in Zhao Xiu's eyes. Although his cultivation level was higher than Li Ziliang's, he had suffered too much in the Hall of Drunken and Dreamy. He did not have much confidence in fighting someone of the same level. After all the cultivators here had passed the selection of the Hall of Drunken and Dreamy. Young Master Su, do you think Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiu can overcome the Hall of Freedom? Chu Xiangxiang asked. They definitely can, Sumo said with certainty. Oh, Chu Xiangxiang did not expect Sumo to answer so straightforwardly. Why do you say so? Because they all appeared in my memories. Sumo smiled faintly. So, they're definitely not ordinary people. When Chu Xiangxiang heard that, she was stunned at first, then she could not help but laugh. This reason was so ridiculous? However, Sumo was not a ridiculous person. Whoosh! At that moment, 4 other cultivators of the same level appeared on the transparent wall. Mobile version of the fastest updated website, Chapter 469. The 4 cultivators of the same level faced Yu Wuji, Yi Kansheng, Li Ziliang, and Zhao Xiu respectively. However, to say that they were on the same level, it could only be said that they were both in the undead realm. It was impossible for the cultivators here to be on the same level as Yu Wuji, because Yu Wuji was at the undead realm. That was an existence that could bury a god with 1 step. According to the situation in Underworld City, she had already passed the tribulation of life and death, so there was no need for her to challenge the 4 palaces. Thus, the cultivator who was fighting against her couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Firstly, that cultivator probably did not expect that his opponent would turn out to be a female cultivator. After all, there were almost no foreign female cultivators in the Bliss Palace. Secondly, he was facing a Grand Circle Undead Realm expert. Undead Realm Great Circle was a completely superior existence in Nether City. However, he was just an early-stage undead. I admit defeat. The male cultivator raised his hand without hesitation. The corners of Yu Wuji's mouth curled up slightly, but he didn't say anything. Sumo, who was watching from outside the palace, laughed. A wise man submits to circumstances. Chu Xiangxiang smiled helplessly. Originally, she really wanted to see what Yu Wuji was capable of. Unfortunately, There was no one who could fight against her, unless someone of his level appeared. However, there was no need for that. Yi Kanxing was facing a middle-stage, undead expert. This was truly the same level. But once they started fighting, Yi Kanxing was practically beating up his opponent. In front of Yi Kanxing, that middle-stage, undead master simply couldn't withstand a single blow. Moreover, Sumo could tell that Yi Kanxing had not used his full strength, because Yi Kanxing didn't even use the Mara, star-studded whip. Young Master Su's two friends are indeed extraordinary. Chu Xiangxiang praised sincerely. Of course, Sumo smiled, but when they looked at Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao, their situations were different. The two of them were truly at the same level. Li Ziliang was fighting against a gray-robed cultivator. Both of them were at the early stage, undead realm. For a time, the two of them were locked in a stalemate. Zhao Xiao's opponent was a young cultivator. That cultivator looked to be in his 20s, but he had an extraordinary bearing. In the battle between the two, Zhao Xiao was obviously at a disadvantage. Zhao Xiao's face was slightly pale, as if she was not strong enough. Li Ziliang might still have a chance, but I'm afraid Zhao Xiao will lose this round. That young cultivator is the most outstanding disciple of the Divine Sword sect in the 10th floor of Nether City. Chu Xiangxiang said, "Let's wait and see." Sumo smiled. The spectators outside the hall could see everything clearly. Yu Wuji won all 3 matches without a fight. Yi Kanxing won all 3 matches without bloodshed. Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao's first match had yet to be decided. Who? On the transparent wall, the images of Yu Wuji and Yi Kanxing suddenly disappeared. In the end, only the battle between Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao was left. As the images disappeared, there was a ripple of spiritual qi in the hall where Sumo was. Yi Kanxing and Yu Wuji had already appeared in front of Sumo. "You two, you're a little late." Sumo laughed. "Sumo, you're the better one," Yu Wuji said. Yi Kanxing nodded and smiled as well. Now, they had a certain understanding of everything about the Bliss Palace. They thought that Sumo had also made it here after passing the trial. "Congratulations to the two of you for passing the Carefree Hall," Chu Xiangxiang said with a smile. Yi Kanxing and Yu Wuji both cupped their fists at Chu Xiangxiang and did not say anything. Chu Xiangxiang was someone they had met before. At that moment, everyone's attention was on Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao, who, the sound of wind could be heard from the wall. Li Ziliang had used some unknown spell to defeat his opponent. He won the first round. However, Li Ziliang had expended a lot of energy. Fortunately, there was no time limit for the trial. Li Ziliang could wait until he recovered all his energy before choosing a challenge. When that time came, his opponent would naturally appear. On the other hand, Zhao Xiao was completely at a disadvantage. The cultivator from the Divine Sword sect pressed forward, the sword in his hand dancing like a dragon. Zhao Xiao's face turned even paler, as if he could not hold on any longer. At that moment, a cold glint flashed in the eyes of the young cultivator from the Divine Sword sect. This was already his 3rd round. As long as he defeated Zhao Xiao, he would be able to pass the Carefree Hall. He was only 1 step away from victory. How could the cultivator not seize this opportunity? Pust! The Divine Sword flashed and pierced Zhao Xiao's immortal heart. It was a very ordinary strike. However, the cultivator had already cast a spell on Zhao Xiao. From the perspective of Chu Xiangxiang and the others, Zhao Xiao was already trapped in place and could not escape. Death was certain. But there was a flash of mysterious light. The transparent wall instantly emitted an endless amount of bloody light. The sword of the cultivator from the Divine Sword sect should have pierced through Zhao Xiao's immortal heart. Reality was cruel. Zhao Xiao had cultivated hard for many years, but he did not expect to be killed as soon as he came out of the Dream Death Hall. Everyone sighed in their hearts. However, when the bloody light dissipated, everyone took a closer look and couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. Because for some reason, on the screen, Zhao Xiao had already switched places with the cultivator from the Divine Sword sect. Zhao Xiao's face was still pale, but the eyes of the young cultivator from the Divine Sword sect were filled with fear. because, even until his death, he did not understand. How did his sword end up piercing his immortal heart? Just now, he clearly saw that the sword was aimed at Zhao Xiao. The few people watching the battle had different expressions. Yu Wuji and Yi Qiansheng did not feel much. Who won or lost, who lived or died, had nothing to do with them. Chu Xiangxiang furrowed her brows at first, but then relaxed. Zhao Xiao's performance had indeed exceeded her expectations. What a miraculous spell! Although Chu Xiangxiang did not know what spell Zhao Xiao had used, the cultivator from the Divine Sword sect must have fallen for Zhao Xiao's illusion, or he would not have stabbed her. The Divine Illusion sect. Zhao Xiao. Chu Xiangxiang's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that she had to re-evaluate Zhao Xiao. Shifting stars, substitution. At this moment, Sumo's eyes narrowed slightly. What Zhao Xiao had used just now was a spell of the three realms. He's a reincarnator of the three realms. Sumo thought to herself. But who was he? Did he remember her outside Peach Blossom Town? Perhaps this Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang were not the same. Everyone had their own thoughts. At this time, Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao both took a short break. Then each took a medicinal pill and began the second round of the competition. The second round was very similar to the first. Li Ziliang's side was still evenly matched, while Zhao Xiao's side was still cautious with every step. However, the result was almost exactly the same as the first round. Li Ziliang won another round without mishap, and Zhao Xiao once again reversed the situation at the last moment. However, this time, Zhao Xiao's opponent did not stab himself. Instead, Zhao Xiao stood behind him and pierced the back of his head with his sword. 2 victories. Chu Xiangxiang was very surprised. Young Master Su, I'm afraid your words will come true. They really are not ordinary cultivators. Chu Xiangxiang looked at Sumo and smiled meaningfully. Chapter 470. They were no ordinary cultivators. The same sentence had different meanings in different people's hearts. In Chu Xiangxiang's eyes, Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao were both rather unexpected and extraordinary. This was because most cultivators from Nether City did not have the strength to do so, unless they were from the 5 major clans. Cultivators from the 5 major clans would never bother coming to the Bliss Palace. However, in Sumo's heart, it was completely different. In this world, there was a cause and effect. Sumo believed that since she was born from the 3-realm roulette, the important people who appeared in her memories would not be ordinary people. Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao had both appeared clearly in her memories. They could even be considered half-old friends. Li Ziliang was still fine, but Zhao Xiao seemed to be rather mysterious. At the moment, his face was as white as a sheet, and he was even panting. However, after 2 consecutive rounds, he looked like he was going to lose, but things took a turn for the better. 2 cultivators of the same level died in his hands. Zhao Xiao's attacks were ruthless, but they gave off the feeling that they were narrow victories. Zhao Xiao was a special person. Chu Xiangxiang and Sumo had different thoughts. Yi Qiansheng and Yu Wuji also thought that Zhao Xiao was interesting. At the moment, the 3rd round had begun. In this round, Li Ziliang was getting more and more courageous. It seemed like he was holding nothing back because it was the last round. The bamboo pole in his hand danced up and down like a green dragon. At the same time, his eyes were faintly glowing red. That was his art. That was the Hades' secret technique. Li Ziliang was using the Shenhuan sect's illusory art to its fullest. The cultivators fighting against him felt like they were being blinded and hallucinating. In reality, cultivators who passed the Hall of Death of Dreams all had powerful souls. Li Ziliang was attacking from both sides. Moreover, the Shenhuan sect's art was indeed unique. Moreover, Li Ziliang seemed to be prepared to die if he did not win this round. Therefore, he had the upper hand in this round. Buffed. The outcome was decided in an instant. The opponent's soul was in a trance, and he could not dodge Li Ziliang's technique. Li Ziliang's bamboo pole pierced through his left shoulder. In an instant, golden blood gushed out. At the same time, Li Ziliang approached and pressed his hand on the cultivator's chest. I admit defeat, the cultivator hurriedly said. Thank you for letting me win. Li Ziliang smiled faintly, but he did not use any killing moves. Instead, he stepped back and cupped his hands in greeting. Huh. Chu Xiangxiang could not help but laugh bitterly when she saw that Li Ziliang had also won 3 rounds in a row. Today, it seemed like the carefree hall was too easy to barge into. One had to know that in the past, a cultivator might not even be able to win 3 matches in a year or 2. But in today's competition, 3 people had been decided. Now, only Zhao Xiu remained. The entire wall showed the fight between Zhao Xiu and another middle stage undead cultivator. Meanwhile, Li Ziliang had already been teleported to the main hall where Sumo and the others were. He looked around and understood everything, so he didn't ask any more questions. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Zhao Xiu's battle. Zhao Xiu's opponent was quite powerful. The 11th floor of the sacred city, the ancient mystic sect Dong Xiaoqing, Chu Xiangxiang said, actually he has the strength of a late-stage undead cultivator. However, he's afraid of the tribulation of life and death, so he's been suppressing his cultivation, not daring to advance. This opponent was specially chosen by my subordinates for Zhao Xiu. Haha. Chu Xiangxiang did not hide anything and looked at Sumo. Zhao Xiu's 2 victories had made the Bliss Palace start to pay attention to the person they thought was trash. Chu Xiangxiang's intention was clear. She wanted to see if Sumo's judgment was correct. Li Ziliang had already won. Would Zhao Xiu really win as well? Were the cultivators in Sumo's memory really that powerful? If 4 cultivators were to pass through the carefree hall within a day, that would be the first time since the establishment of the Bliss Palace. The battle continued. Dong Xiaoqing's fighting style was different from the 2 cultivators who fought against Zhao Xiu. Dong Xiaoqing's moves were extremely steady. They did not look fierce, but he would always protect himself first. Therefore, this kind of fighting style made the battle between the 2 of them look like they were evenly matched. This was completely different from the previous 2 matches, where Zhao Xiu was at a disadvantage. Huh. Chu Xiangxiang laughed and said, "It seems that Zhao Xiu has met his match. Song Xiaoqing's spirit is strong, and his mind is firm. Normal illusions won't be able to deal with him." Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Yi Qianxiang did not say anything. However, what Chu Xiangxiang said was true. Powerful illusions could be cast without a sound. Zhao Xiu had already cast an illusion, but Dong Xiaoqing's mind was firm, and he was not moved at all. Moreover, he was not in a hurry to defeat Zhao Xiu. He had been waiting for an opportunity. He wanted to torture Zhao Xiu to death. After all, Zhao Xiu's cultivation level was lower than his, and he had been panting. From Dong Xiaoqing's perspective, Zhao Xiu's panting was to confuse him. However, even if Zhao Xiu was normal, he was confident that he could torture any cultivator of the same cultivation level to death. The ancient mystic sect had special techniques and abundant spiritual qi. If they did not encounter a cultivator of the same cultivation level like Sumo, who practiced the undying technique, their chances of winning were high. Whoosh, whoosh. The immortal sword in Song Xiaoqing's hand was impenetrable. Every move was as steady as Mount Tai. Zhao Xiu's eyes flashed. He was most afraid of this kind of opponent, because only he knew exactly how weak his body was. He was not putting on a show. Because of his innate deficiency, he could not use spiritual qi for a long time. However, he had to win this battle. Sumo and the others watched the battle quietly. They were all wondering if Zhao Xiu could turn the tables. Sumo wanted to see if Zhao Xiu could still use the 3 realms technique. That way, Sumo would have a certain amount of confidence in figuring out who Zhao Xiu was. ZZZT, ZZZT. Song Xiaoqing's sword instantly produced 7 or 8 sword flowers. Every sword flower was surrounded by the power of immortality. Song Xiaoqing added a bit more force to this attack. He felt that Zhao Xiu could not hold on much longer. However, he still did not advance. In fact, that was the case. Zhao Xiu had reached his limit. His Dan-Si would soon run out. Because his Dan-Si was not complete at all, his spiritual qi was depleting with every passing moment. Zhao Xiu's appearance in the Yizong world was the result of a combination of various factors. Originally, he was a person whose reincarnation had been severed. When the 3 realms were reborn into the Milky Way, he did not revive. He only had a chance because of the Milky Way's shattering. Unfortunately, he did not have a complete body. His soul and Dan Si were both lacking. Cough. Sure enough, Zhao Xiao could not completely dodge Song Xiaoqing's attack. The power of his Dan Si could only allow him to unleash one more attack. One and only attack. He had no choice but to use this sword. He had to win. Whoosh! Zhao Xiao's eyes flashed with a bloody light. He did not dodge Song Xiaoqing's attack. Instead, he swung the sword in his hand to meet Song Xiaoqing's. That was a way to perish together. Everyone was taken aback. Chu Xiangxiang raised an eyebrow. Zhao Xiao's desire to live was beyond her imagination. This was not the same Zhao Xiao who had struggled for years in the Hall of Death. In an instant, the red light lit up and covered the entire scene. Zhao Xiao's sword seemed to have turned into a bloody blade that wanted to split everything. That move was shockingly powerful. At the same time, Sumo's eyes flashed. Then, she let out a long sigh in her heart. It's been a long time. Zhao Xiao, it's you. Chapter 471. Puff blood filled the sky. The scene on the wall instantly froze. Zhao Xiao's entire body had pierced through Song Xiaoqing's body. He stood behind Song Xiaoqing, his chest heaving up and down. Song Xiaoqing's body had already been split into two. However, the body did not explode immediately. Instead, there was a red blood light swimming in the middle. Sizzle. That was not Song Xiaoqing's blood, because the blood of an undying cultivator was golden. It was Zhao Xiao's sword light, a red sword light. It was an indescribable and inexplicable force. Song Xiaoqing's eyes were filled with fear. Even in death, he did not believe that everything that had just happened was real. There is absolutely no problem with him substituting defense for offense in that strike, just now. However, Zhao Xiao's sword had actually burst forth with an astonishing bloodlight, breaking through everything unstoppable. What kind of power was that? How could the dying Zhao Xiao possess such power? Song Xiaoqing wanted to turn back to look at Zhao Xiao. However, he turned his head slightly. Boom! His body instantly exploded. Flesh and blood splattered, and then instantly turned into mist. That scene caused Chu Xiangxiang, Su Mo, and the others to be shocked. Huff! Huff! At this moment, Zhao Xiao was kneeling on the ground, panting heavily. His face was as pale as paper, and beads of sweat covered his forehead and face. At the same time, there were sword wounds on his shoulders and arms. There was even a bloody hole on the left side of the immortal heart. Gurgling, golden blood flowed. Song Xiaoqing's sword had also injured him. However, those swords were not fatal. The bloodlight in Zhao Xiao's eyes gradually faded. At that moment, it was like a red light gradually extinguished. Heavy breathing seemed to resound throughout the hall. Golden blood flowed out of the corner of Zhao Xiao's mouth. His injury was definitely not light. Amazing! Amazing! Chu Xiangxiang's lips curved up strangely as she praised. Thump! Zhao Xiao's body also fell. However, he should have fainted. Sumo raised her brows. Palace Master Chu, this Zhao Xiao is the person I want to see. Nothing must happen to him. Sumo's tone was very solemn. Huh? Chu Xiangxiang only laughed. Then, she waved her hand. Who? The two female cultivators who went out just now had already returned to Chu Xiangxiang's side. At the same time, they brought Zhao Xiao back. The two female cultivators extended their hands at the same time. They had already sent Zhao Xiao to Sumo and the others. Senior brother Zhao. Li Ziliang was the first to go over to take a look. He saw that Zhao Xiao's eyes were tightly shut and her breathing was weak. However, his life should not be in danger. Li Ziliang placed one hand on Zhao Xiao's Dan Si. A wave of undying energy was directly transmitted into it. When this energy entered, it made Zhao Xiao's dried-up Dan Si feel like it was bathed in sweet rain. At the same time, this force stopped his injuries. Zhao Xiao moaned softly and slowly woke up. Senior brother Zhao, what do you feel? Li Ziliang asked. I'm fine. Zhao Xiao shook his head and laughed bitterly. Hee. A puny bliss palace almost took my life. Zhao Xiu's words were filled with vicissitudes. As he spoke, Zhao Xiu took out a pill from his robes and swallowed it. Then he sat cross-legged and adjusted his breathing for a moment. Although his face was still pale, it was slightly better. His life was not in danger. Zhao Xiu opened his eyes again. At this moment, he finally had the chance to look around. Chu Xiangxiang, Sumo, and the others came into view one by one. Chu Xiangxiang had been sitting on the big chair on the high platform. Her identity was obvious at a glance. Li Ziliang's arrival surprised Zhao Xiu a little, but it was reasonable. However, when he saw Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Yu Wuji, a look of surprise flashed in Zhao Xiu's eyes. Especially when he saw Sumo, his expression was very complicated. It's been a long time. Sumo smiled at Zhao Xiu. That it's been a long time actually had a deeper meaning. Cough, cough, cough. Cough, cough. Zhao Xiu struggled to get up, then bowed deeply at Sumo and let out a long sigh. Zhao Xiu of the Divine Illusion Sect greets. Lil Su, young Master Su. Zhao Xiu seemed to be hesitant about how to address Sumo, and the way he addressed her was a little out of place. Hee hee. Sumo smiled faintly when he heard that. Zhao Xiu, you know me? Of course. Zhao Xiu smiled bitterly. No. Sumo shook her head. I mean, you know Sumo? Yes. Zhao Xiu nodded. That's what I meant just now. Outside Peach Blossom Town, a dilapidated temple, a bunch of beggars talking and bragging. Hee hee. Zhao Xiu smiled bitterly. Oh, Sumo asked with a smile. That Lao Xuan too? You remember him too, right? Of course. That old fart. Zhao Xiu sneered, then felt that he was being ridiculous. Therefore, Zhao Xiu looked at Sumo and shook his head with a helpless smile. After leaving the Bliss Palace, I'd like to have a long talk with you, Brother Zhao. Sumo smiled. After all, I once owed you a big favor. Hee hee. Cough, cough, cough. Zhao Xiu's pale face flushed from the coughing. Little Master Su, I don't deserve that. It's already a miracle that I'm able to be a human again. Zhao Xiu, why did it take you so long to go through the Hall of Death? Sumo asked. My heart was full of distracting thoughts. Zhao Xiu laughed self-deprecatingly. Before you came back, I might not have been able to understand some of the past. Too many obsessions messed up my mind. Have you let go of it now? Sumo asked. There are many things that I have to let go of even if I don't want to. Since you've let go, what can I let go of? Hee hee, I should have let it go a long time ago. Zhao Xiu smiled. It's fine. Sumo looked at Zhao Xiu and said, Don't worry, I'll help you return to your peak. I won't let your past go to waste. Zhao Xiu smiled and nodded, but said nothing else. The conversation between the two was a little strange. None of the people present could understand what he was saying. Li Ziliang understood that Zhao Xiu's memories should be the same as Sumo's. However, he could not understand the latter part of the conversation. Yu Wuji and Yi Kansheng looked at each other. They knew who Sumo was. They could feel from Sumo's question that Zhao Xiu might be a reincarnator as well. However, they could not tell who Zhao Xiu was. Did Sumo owe Zhao Xiu a great favor? Who was he in the Three Realms galaxy, above the Eternal Realm? Or was it a favor that Sumo owed in this life? The two were also confused. They could not understand the true meaning behind Sumo and Zhao Xiu's words. Chu Xiangxiang, of course, could not understand either. At this moment, only Sumo and Zhao Xiu understood each other. After speaking with Zhao Xiu, Sumo turned to Chu Xiangxiang and said, Hall Master Chu, please send us to the Palace of Desire of Immortals? Ha! Chu Xiangxiang nodded, then glanced at Sumo and the rest. Congratulations, you have passed 3 halls. The Palace of Desire of Immortals is your last stop. I hope that you will obtain the great Tao of Desire. Ha ha! Ha ha! Chu Xiangxiang's bell-like laughter rang out. Then, she suddenly stood up and flung her long sleeves. The aura of the undead realm suddenly dispersed. The entire hall was instantly filled with endless brilliance. It was a Taoist technique. Amidst the brilliance, Sumo and the rest felt like they were in a whirlpool of a technique. They could not help but spin freely and then soar into the sky. Whoosh! Everything around them flowed like water. Whoosh! The brilliance dissipated in an instant. However, Chu Xiangxiang and the two female cultivators were nowhere to be seen. Everything in the carefree hall had also disappeared. When Sumo looked again, they were already in another space. Chapter 472. The Palace of Desire of Immortals. Sumo and the other four knew that they should be in the Palace of Desire of Immortals. However, this palace was slightly different from the other palaces. There was no celestial fog here, and there were no other cultivators. The entire palace was only 1/3 the size of the carefree palace that was shrouded in celestial fog. However, it was slightly empty. The entire palace was sealed. There was a black statue in the center of the palace. It was a strange statue. It was a statue of a young cultivator dressed in black. On the statue, the cultivator's long hair was spread out, and it was tied with a spring. However, the strangest thing was that it was impossible to tell whether the cultivator was a male or a female cultivator from his face and posture. If it was a male cultivator, it would be too beautiful. That kind of beauty was not only exquisite, like Xiao Luo and Murong in the past, but also had a hint of seductive charm unique to women. However, if it was a female cultivator, there was too much heroic spirit in her eyes. Although it was only a statue, its eyes were emitting a piercingly cold glint. A kind of indescribable androgynous beauty was vividly reflected on the sculpture. Was it a man or a woman? That was why it was indeed a strange statue. Who was it, and why was it standing there? Sumo and the others could not understand. At that moment, a female cultivator's voice came from the palace. Congratulations on arriving at the Palace of Desire of Immortals. As the voice spoke, a female cultivator in a white dress gradually appeared. It was a female cultivator dressed in plain clothes with delicate features and a calm expression. At first glance, she looked very elegant and refined. She was at the peak of the undead realm. There were no other female cultivators behind her. Lord of the Palace of Desire of Immortals? Sumo cupped her hands and bowed to the female cultivator. That's right. Bai Shulian greets my fellow cultivators. You've already passed 3 trials in a row. It wasn't easy. Bai Mulian, the Lord of the Palace of Desire of Immortals, returned the greeting to Sumo and the others. Her aura was very different from Chu Xiangxiang. Her name was Shuilian, and she was indeed as fresh as a lotus. She had an extraordinary aura. However, the white water lotus was still floating in the air and did not fall down. Palace Master Bai, how do I clear the Palace of Desire of Immortals? Sumo asked. Don't worry, young Master Su. Bai Shuilian smiled faintly and said, in the Drunken Life Hall, you will meditate on life and death. In the Dreamy Death Hall, you will refine your soul. In the Carefree Hall, you will compete in spells. Actually, now that you're at the Hall of Immortal Desire, there's nothing left. Oh, Sumo and the others were slightly taken aback. What did that mean? Could it be that this Celestial Desire Palace doesn't have any tests? Bai Shuilian seemed to know what they were thinking. She nodded and said, among the 4 halls of bliss, the Hall of Immortal Desire is of course the highest level. However, the easiest place to pass is actually the Palace of Desire. No one said anything, because they didn't believe that it would be as easy as Bai Shuilian said. They expected Bai Shuilian to continue. As expected, Bai Shuilian changed the topic and said, in my place, you only need to make a small choice, and you will have the opportunity to obtain the method to pass the tribulation of life and death. What's a choice? Sumo asked. The choice between life and death. Bai Shuilian smiled warmly. However, that gentle smile sent chills down one's spine. What do you mean by the choice between life and death? Sumo narrowed her eyes. He didn't like the way Bai Shuilian spoke. He wanted everything to be straightforward. Under normal circumstances, life and death wouldn't even be considered a choice. That was because unless there were extremely special circumstances, no one would choose to die. Once you chose to die, there was essentially no such thing as a choice. Only those who had no choice would die. Bai Shuilian's words made everyone uncomfortable. Especially, she had a faint and gentle smile on her face. However, Bai Shuilian didn't mind. That was because that was how she always presented herself to others. There would always be women like that in the world who thought they were beautiful, but had vicious hearts. The Palace of Bliss exists for the cultivators of Nether City to reach the path of bliss. The cultivators who pass the other 3 halls are the cream of the crop of Nether City's cultivators. In other words, all of you have earned the right to pass the tribulation of life. However, the right to pass the tribulation of life and death isn't something everyone can obtain. You'll have to pay a certain price, Bai Shulian said with a smile. As expected, Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Yu Wuji smirked inwardly. Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiu frowned slightly. Sumo recalled Chu Xiangxiang's words. There was a price to pay for obtaining the right to pass the tribulation of life and death. The Hall of Immortal Desire was not an easy place to go. Please tell us what the price is, Hall Master Bai. Sumo said. A drop of soul's blood. Bai Shulian answered slowly. A drop of soul's blood? Sumo almost laughed out loud when she heard Bai Shulian's words. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji wore mocking expressions as well. Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiu's expressions changed slightly. However, Zhao Xiu laughed bitterly and said self-deprecatingly, "A drop of soul's blood? My spiritual soul and Danci aren't even complete, and I still have to give someone a drop of soul's blood? What a joke." Li Ziliang shook his head helplessly. Of course, he wanted the method to pass the tribulation of life and death. However, the price of a drop of soul's blood was too high. Therefore, he was slightly disappointed and hesitant. Soul's blood. As the name suggested, it was soul's blood. To a cultivator, soul's blood was extremely important. A drop of soul's blood was enough to determine a cultivator's life. When a cultivator gave their soul's blood to another, it was no different from putting their lives in the other party's hands. That was because the other party could annihilate their souls with a single thought. Exchanging soul's blood for the method to pass the tribulation of life and death was indeed a little too much. The Palace of Bliss really knows how to do business. Sumo sneered. Perhaps this shouldn't be called business, but looting a burning house. This is daylight robbery. Someone once told me that I must never give my soul's blood to others. Young Master Su, you're wrong, Bai Shulian said with a smile. The Palace of Bliss has never forcefully roped in any cultivator. Those who come to my Palace of Bliss do so willingly. This is the first. Nether City cultivators will face the tribulation of life and death when they reach the advanced stage of the Undying Realm. Most of them will turn into ashes. This is the second. Since you've passed through 3 halls, the Palace of Celestial Desire doesn't force you to leave your soul's blood behind. You can decide for yourselves. This is the third. With these 3 points, how can you say that we're looting a burning house, young Master Su? We're merely giving the cultivators of Nether City a chance. Otherwise, they'll die when their time is up. Bai Shulian kept a smile on her face as she spoke. Cruel things, with a smile to say, this is disgusting. Sumo raised an eyebrow. Does that mean that the Palace of Bliss is merciful? Palace Lord Bai, you look like a lotus. Are you comparing yourself to Bodhisattva? I wouldn't dare. Bai Shulian's expression remained unchanged. Palace Lord Bai, I'd like to ask, what will happen if we don't offer our soul's blood? The one who asked was Zhao Xiu. His face was still pale at the moment. Don't offer our soul's blood? Bai Shulian looked at Zhao Xiu meaningfully and said with a smile, the Palace of Bliss takes a lot of time and effort to select cultivators. Of course, we can't do without something in return. Those who enter the Palace of Celestial Desire and choose not to offer their soul's blood will have to fight their way out. Those who fail to do so shall rest here and nourish the Palace of Bliss. Bai Shulian's last sentence was eerily cold. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 473. Either you leave your soul blood behind, or you rest here forever. This was not a choice at all, but a form of coercion. Bai Shulian's words infuriated Sumo and the others. How interesting, Yu Wuji sneered. Temple Lord Bai, I'm already a perfected undead realm cultivator. The so-called life and death tribulations of Nether City don't exist for me. What should I do now? Could it be that you still want to trap me here? Bai Shuilian seemed to have expected this question. Miss you, just watch from the sidelines later. I'll send you out of Bliss Palace once I'm done here. Hee hee. Yuwuji only laughed dryly and said nothing else. Temple Lord Bai, I'm not a cultivator of Nether City, and I don't have a life and death tribulations. Yi Kansheng smiled. You can stand aside as well, sir. Bai Shuilian smiled again. Yi Kansheng nodded, but there was a cold smile on his face. I don't need it, do I? Sumo asked. Sure. Bai Shuilian's smile remained gentle. However, she turned to Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao and asked, what about the two of you from the Divine Fantasy sect? You're both cultivators of Nether City. What's your choice? Hee hee. Zhao Xiao smiled with a pale face, then looked at Bai Shuilian and said, Temple Lord Bai, do you think I'll choose to hand over my soul blood? Of course you will. Bai Shuilian nodded with certainty. I've seen many cultivators of Nether City like you. In the beginning, they refused as well. However, once the Grim Reaper arrives, they'll change their minds. The Grim Reaper? Zhao Xiao smiled. The Grim Reaper. I used to be very familiar with the Grim Reaper. Zhao Xiao could not help but glance at Sumo beside her as she spoke. Sumo merely smiled and said nothing. Wasn't the underworld sovereign to the Grim Reaper of the Three Realms? So you're not going to hand over your soul blood for now, Taoist Zhao? Bai Shuilian asked gently. Not for now, but never. Zhao Xiao sneered. Handing over your soul blood is equivalent to handing over your life and freedom. If that's the case, what's the point of living? I, Zhao Xiao, only live for myself. I will not be anyone's puppet. Live only for himself, and not to be anyone's puppet? This sentence seemed to make Bai Shuilian absent-minded for a moment. However, she regained her composure in an instant and said faintly, a puppet's fate is not something they can choose for themselves. Hee hee. This sentence was also quite thought-provoking. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Fellow Taoist Li, what about you? Bai Shuilian asked Li Ziliang. Sigh. Li Ziliang let out a long sigh before he sneered. I wasn't planning on coming to the Bliss Palace. In my opinion, the Bliss Palace is merely deceiving the world. Now it looks like it's true. Elderly, we have implicated you, Sumo said with a smile. Li Ziliang shook his head. You flatter me. Actually, I did gain some enlightenment along the way. What enlightenment, elderly? Bai Shuilian asked. The so-called Bliss Palace is actually a dead end. Li Ziliang smirked. The people of Underworld City face the calamity of life and death, which is also a dead end. Two dead ends. Hee hee. However, I can choose how I die. Am I right? Yes. Bai Shuilian's expression finally changed a little. That was because she heard Li Ziliang's answer. Hee hee. Well said, Liangzi. Zhao Xiao laughed. Even if there's only a moment left to live. Li Ziliang's voice became solemn. Although he looked extremely ugly, he seemed to be glowing at that moment. I want to hold it in my own hands. No one can control me. These words were powerful and resonant. Ha ha ha. Sumo could not help but clap and laugh when she heard Li Ziliang's words. Her eyes sparkled. Well said, Liangzi. At that moment, Sumo was even more touched. Everyone had the right to choose. Such a choice actually transcended the existence of life and death. Everyone's choice was in their heart. This kind of choice did not need external force. It was in their heart. In the past, in the Three Realms, Sumo always had to choose for all living beings, whether it was reincarnation or immortality. In fact, it was not the will of all living beings. From this point, both he and Amu seemed to be very laughable and also very pitiful. They made choices for others. However, who was willing to be a puppet? There was no end to cultivation, and there was no end to one's state of mind. Sumo sighed in her heart. In this reincarnation, his state of mind was constantly changing. In the eyes of ordinary people, Li Ziliang's words were actually a refusal to donate his soul blood. However, in Sumo's ears, it was a kind of extreme enlightenment. Even if there's only a moment left to live, I want to hold it in my own hands. No one can control me. Li Ziliang seemed to be speaking for all living beings. His words were like a clap of thunder to Su Immo hee hee hee. Hee hee. Bai Shuoyan suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. At that moment, she seemed to have finally taken off her gentle and solemn mask. All living beings are like ants talking nonsense about the Great Way. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Soon, you will understand your own ignorance and arrogance. In the face of real death, you will all bow down and beg for mercy. Whoosh! In an instant, the situation changed. The hall where Sumo and the others were in suddenly became dark, as if it had become a world of death. However, for the cultivators of the undead realm, they could see things in the dark as if it was daytime. However, Bai Shuoyan had disappeared. At the same time, Sumo and the others felt an inexplicable aura surging. In this hall, there were other cultivators hiding. However, Sumo and the others did not see them. At this time, the black statue in the middle of the hall suddenly moved. It turned out to be the cultivator. No, to be precise, it should be 5 cultivators, because it was divided into 5. Sumo and the others saw clearly that 5 cultivators, who looked exactly the same, came down from the black statue. 5 cultivators in black, with endless elegance, looked like a man and a woman. But what realm was that? In the eyes of Sumo and the others, the cultivators in black turned out to be erratic. Early stage of the undead realm, middle stage of the undead realm, peak stage of the undead realm. Finally, they understood. These 5 cultivators in black walked towards Sumo, Yu Wuji, Yi Kansheng, Li Ziliang, and Zhao Xiao, one-on-one, and their realm was determined according to the opponent. The cultivator in black in front of Yu Wuji was the peak stage of the undead realm. The cultivator in black in front of Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Zhao Xiao was the middle stage of the undead realm. Li Ziliang's realm was the lowest, and the cultivator in black he faced was the early stage of the undead realm. Ha ha ha! Bai Shuoyan's voice suddenly sounded in the hall. Everyone in front of you is the death god. In the palace of desire of immortals, those who are unwilling to offer their soul blood will face the judgment of the death god. Young Master Su, Miss Yu, fellow Taoist Yi, the 3 of you are not cultivators of Nether City. As long as you watch from the sidelines, you will naturally not touch the death god. When everything is over, you will be sent out of the hall. Otherwise, you will also suffer. Nether City cultivators accept the judgment of the death god. Chapter 474. Death's Verdict. As soon as Bai Shuoyan, the Lord of Celestial Desire Hall, finished speaking, the walls of the entire Celestial Desire Hall disappeared. The ground began to extend outwards endlessly. The space was changing. With the statue as the center, everything expanded outwards. At the same time, the ground beneath Sumo and the others was changing as well. The 5 of them were completely separated. If the Carefree Hall was a circle, then each of them occupied 1/5 of the area. In every area, there was a black-robed cultivator that looked exactly the same. Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Yi Kansheng could not help but look at one another. The 3 of them were not all adjacent to one another. Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang stood on Sumo's left and right. Yu Wuji and Yi Kansheng stood between Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang. The division of areas was very interesting. Let's just watch from the sidelines. Sumo smiled at Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji. Let's see if they can handle it first. If they can, then it's fine. If not, then we'll make our move. Sumo's words were spoken openly. He expected that Bai Shuoyan would be able to hear it, but he had no intention of hiding anything. Li Ziliang came to Bliss Palace because of them, and they were old acquaintances. Zhao Xiao was a samsara traveler of the 3 realms. Sumo could not let either of them die. As such, he did not hide his stance. Even if a god of burial cultivator were to appear in Bliss Palace, Sumo had the ability to protect Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang. Yu Wuji and Yi Kansheng naturally understood what Sumo meant. They smiled and nodded. They did not move. The black-clothed cultivator stood there like a statue. Bai Shuoyan did not lie to them about that. As long as they did not interfere, they would not be attacked. In other words, the 3 black-robed cultivators were there to keep Sumo and the others busy. Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang looked at one another. How is it Yoshiko. Zhao Xiao smiled. Are you confident? Fight to the death. Li Ziliang said. Hee hee. Zhao Xiao shook his head. There's no need to risk your life. What was the Grim Reaper of the Bliss Palace? The Grim Reaper of the Three Realms is standing right beside you. Unfortunately, you don't know. The three of them would not stand idly by. Hee hee. We are all blessed people. Oh? Hee hee. Li Ziliang didn't understand what Zhao Xiao was saying, but he understood that Sumo and the others would help him. Therefore, Li Ziliang's heart calmed down a little. At this moment, the eyes of the two black-robed cultivators facing Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang slightly lit up. Then, they reached behind them with one hand and slowly pulled out a black sickle. It had a long black hilt, curved like a crescent moon, and was even darker than ink. It was a rather strange weapon, Death's integrity. Its entire body was emitting waves of black gas. It looked extremely terrifying. Its level could not be seen. Sumo and the others frowned. Are you a puppet? Sumo looked at the black-robed cultivator in front of her and asked. However, the black-robed cultivator said nothing. His eyes were dim, and he did not make any move to pull out his sword. Sumo sneered. Then, with a shake of one hand, she opened the red dust ancient fan with a whoosh. Even the skull inside the ancient fan poked its head out slightly. A dangerous aura spread out in an instant. At this moment, the black-robed cultivator facing Sumo had his eyes lit up, and he began to pull out his sword as well. Are you a puppet? Sumo asked again. However, the black-robed cultivator with endless elegance did not answer at all. He only stared blankly at Sumo. Sumo did not make any further moves, and the black-robed cultivator simply held the death scythe in his hand. Sumo narrowed his eyes slightly. From what he could see, those were definitely 5 puppets. It was just that their design was even more exquisite. Judging from what happened just now, they were supposed to be 1 puppet. One was divided into 5, and yet that was the case. How powerful was the black statue that didn't have 5 cultivators? Could it be a god-burying puppet? Sumo took a deep breath. The Bliss Palace was indeed hiding its strength. Or rather, the waters of Jiu Nether City ran very deep. Whoosh! At that moment, the 2 black-robed cultivators fighting Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang had already made their moves. The Death's scythe emanated a black glow, stirring up endless winds as it swept towards them. Zhao Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly. His instincts told him that the black-robed cultivator was much more powerful than the ones he had just fought. More importantly, the cultivator did not have a human aura at all. A puppet. Zhao Xiao thought to himself. This was going to be troublesome. While Zhao Xiao had seen his fair share of puppets back in the 3 realms, the current Zhao Xiao did not have the power he had back then. Right now, the spells he was most familiar with were the spells of the God Mirage sect. However, the spells of the God Mirage sect were ineffective against puppets. That was because puppets did not have the consciousness of a normal cultivator. Puppets were the natural enemy of illusory cultivators. Divine Mirage sect cultivators would definitely be at a disadvantage against puppets of the same level. At that moment, Zhao Xiao dodged the black-robed cultivator's scythe, but he did not counterattack right away. That was because Zhao Xiao knew his own situation the best. His illusory spells were restricted, and other spells were mostly useless. However, he had a secret spell that he could use. That being said, he would only use that secret spell when he was 90% sure of success. Otherwise, it was very likely that he would die under the opponent's scythe. Therefore, Zhao Xiao relied on his movement technique and kept leaping around. He did not hope to win. All he wanted was not to lose. For a moment, the black-robed cultivator could not do anything to him. Li Ziliang's situation was similar to Zhao Xiao's. However, his expression was even more solemn. That was because Zhao Xiao had a backup plan and was waiting for the right time. Li Ziliang was truly at his wit's end. He tried to exchange blows twice, but he was not a match for the black-robed cultivator at all. Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Yu Wuji saw everything clearly. In truth, the 3 black-robed cultivators did not use their full strength. It seemed that they had only used 50% to 60% of their strength. The 3 of them could not help but look at each other. The Bliss Palace's actions were obvious. From the Bliss Palace's perspective, they were giving Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang a chance. At the moment, they did not want to kill the two cultivators who had passed through 3 halls. After all, such cultivators were the cream of the crop among those who challenged the Bliss Palace. However, Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang were still unmoved. Whoosh! The 2 black-robed cultivators swung the scythe of the Grim Reaper. A faint white light seeped through the black glow. At the same time, the 2 cultivators' speed increased. Their strength was increasing. Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang's expressions changed in an instant. That was because the pressure on them had multiplied. Zhao Xiao's face grew paler. At the same time, a bloody glow appeared in his eyes. He could not wait any longer. Otherwise, he would be exhausted to death. The bamboo pole in Li Ziliang's hand tightened as well. In an instant, the bamboo pole was coated with a layer of strange light. That light was extremely special. Both of you, the sea of bitterness has no bounds. Repent, and you'll be saved. Bai Shuilian's voice was heard. However, at the same time, Li Ziliang and Zhao Xiao chose to fight with their lives at the same time. Whoosh! Li Ziliang charged forward after finding a gap in the scythe of the Grim Reaper. His bamboo pole was like a divine sword that pierced the black-robed cultivator's throat. That was the puppet's weak spot. The divine sword in Zhao Xiao's hand shone with a blinding, bloody glow. That move was the same as the one he used to kill Song Shaoqing. That was their final trump card. However, Sumo and the other 2 outside the battlefield were shocked. Mobile version of the fastest updated website. Chapter 475. Chi, boom! Li Ziliang's bamboo pole hit the black-robed cultivator's throat. In theory, this was the weakest part of puppet. However, this black-robed cultivator was definitely not an ordinary puppet. Li Ziliang's bamboo pole hit the black-robed cultivator's throat, but it could not go any further. It was impossible for him to retract the bamboo pole. Looking again, the black-robed cultivator's expression did not change. He quickly grabbed the bamboo pole with one hand and exerted force. Crack! Li Ziliang's bamboo pole was an immortal divine weapon. However, in the black-robed cultivator's hand, it was like an ordinary bamboo pole, directly breaking it in half. Breaking a divine weapon with his bare hands. This was a situation that even Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Yi Kansheng did not expect. Li Ziliang's soul was shocked, and his face turned pale. That bamboo pole had his soul attached to it. What kind of puppet was this? How could it break his divine weapon? At the same time, Li Ziliang felt a strange force confining his body, making it difficult for him to advance or retreat. It was as if a cultivator of a higher realm was exerting pressure on him. However, the black-robed cultivator opposite him was a puppet, so it was impossible for him to have pressure. On the other side, Zhao Xiao was not much better. Just now, he was able to kill Song Shaoqing of the ancient mystery sect, who was comparable to a late-stage, undying realm cultivator. However, he did not succeed this time. The sword glowed red. That was Zhao Xiao's special skill. That was because his immortal sword contained a wisp of the venerable divine weapon soul. That was Zhao Xiao's biggest reliance. However, every time he used that divine weapon soul, Zhao Xiao consumed a lot of energy. That immortal sword had the form, but it was not an immortal sword at all. However, the current Zhao Xiao could not fully exert the power of that soul. It was not a big problem to deal with a few ordinary, undying realm cultivators. However, when faced with that strange puppet, he failed today. As soon as his sword was drawn, the black-robed cultivator directly blocked Death's scythe. That sword forcefully slashed at the black-robed cultivator's death scythe. In theory, Zhao Xiao's sword could cut through everything. However, that scene did not happen. The black-clothed cultivator's scythe of the god of death suddenly flashed. Immediately after, a stream of black qi almost devoured Zhao Xiao's bloody light. Not good. Zhao Xiao cried out to herself as she hurriedly retreated. However, it was too late. The scythe of the death god had a huge suction force that bound him tightly, making it hard for him to retreat. Hee hee. The two black-clothed cultivators controlled Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang almost at the same time, and then they finally spoke. Their voices were hoarse. "Give me your soul blood, and I'll spare your life." The two black-clothed cultivators spoke at the same time. Their mouths and intonation were completely identical. At this time, Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang's faces were pale. "Give me your soul blood, and I will spare your lives." Bai Shuilian's voice sounded again. At that moment, her voice was like an oracle. At the same time, she appeared once again in the void of the hall. "Zhao Xiao, Li Ziliang, repent. This is the 9th Nether City." He. The corner of Zhao Xiao's mouth was already bleeding. However, his gaze was firm. "You want me to give you my soul blood? Are you worthy?" Zhao Xiao's eyes flashed red, and his face instantly turned from white to red. However, that red was not normal red, it was like blood gushing out. At the same time, a strange force spread out. Boom! Zhao Xiao suddenly retreated, breaking free from the black-clothed cultivator's suction force, and immediately retreated dozens of feet. The immortal sword in his hand had completely turned blood red. Cough, cough. Cough, cough. However, Zhao Xiao's face was so pale that it was almost transparent, and at the same time, blackish-purple blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. Without a doubt, Zhao Xiao had suffered extremely serious internal injuries after forcefully breaking free. The black-clothed cultivator seemed to be stunned. It did not expect Zhao Xiao to be able to break free. "Stubborn. Kill." Bai Shuilian, who was in the void, stood elegantly and shouted coldly. As soon as the word "kill" came out, the two black-clothed cultivators instantly raised the scythe of the death god. Everything was just as Sumo and the others had predicted. Those black-clothed cultivators did not use their full strength at all. At this moment, their auras skyrocketed. Black mist rose, and it was as if the god of death had descended. "Adjudicate!" The two black-clothed cultivators shouted hoarsely. It was extremely incongruous with their appearance. At this moment, both Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang no longer had the strength to fight. The Bliss Palace was right. Giving up their soul blood was actually their only option. At that moment, Li Ziliang's survival instinct almost made him shout that he was willing to give up his soul blood. However, he still forcefully suppressed it. One should not only live for the sake of living, or else it would be a waste. In the end, Li Ziliang closed his eyes. He even wanted to self-destruct his divine illusion orb. Those memories were the most important to the cultivators of the divine illusion sect. Zhao Xiao was much calmer than Li Ziliang. That was because he knew that Sumo would definitely save him. The side of the death god came crashing down. At that crucial moment, Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Yi Kansheng all made their moves. In fact, they had been preparing to make their move. At the same time, they were also observing the black-clothed cultivator's fighting style. After all, they were also facing a black-clothed cultivator of the same level. Sumo patted her storage pouch and immediately brought out the purple-clothed ghost. She was a full-fledged Undead Realm cultivator, so she was able to stop the mid-stage Undead Realm black-clothed cultivator. Sumo, on the other hand, teleported straight to Zhao Xiao. Currently, Sumo's realm was still at the middle stage Undead Realm, but his mastery of various techniques could be said to be unmatched. After all, he had the memories of the Venerable One. Even if it was a common spell, as long as he could cast it, he would be able to reach an extreme state. Sumo's movement technique was extremely fast. He had already brought out the ancient red dust fan in his hand. As the ancient fan flew out, the golden skeleton had already pounced on the black-clothed cultivator who was attacking Zhao Xiao. At the same time, the white sand on Yu Wuji's body had already blocked the black-clothed cultivator, while Yi Kansheng patted his storage pouch and brought out the Mara star-studded whip. Crack! The entire hall lit up with two black flashes. One went straight to the black-clothed cultivator who was fighting Yi Kansheng, and the other went straight to the black-clothed cultivator who was attacking Li Ziliang. "You Qiumu, Yi Xingbai." Zhao Xiao smiled bitterly in her heart. "I didn't expect it to be you guys." "Goodbye." Yu Wuji had already rushed towards Bai Shuilian in the void. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. If, by Shuoyan, the lord of the Immortal Desire Palace, was controlled, the entire Immortal Desire Palace would collapse by itself. Ha ha ha. When Bai Shuoyan saw Sumo and the others making their move, she actually sneered. Whoosh! Yu Wuji rushed towards her, but unexpectedly missed. Yu Wuji actually passed through her body. Illusory body. Yu Wuji raised his eyebrows. None of them actually saw it. Bai Shuoyan was actually not a physical body. No wonder she had been floating in the void. Sumo also did not see anything unusual. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. Bai Shuoyan's voice reverberated throughout the hall. Everyone, since all of you have entered the trap, this is a huge battle. Don't blame me, the Lord of the Immortal Desire Palace. Rumble, rumble. Instantly, the entire Immortal Desire Palace shook. Whoosh! The 5 black-clothed cultivators instantly retreated. Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang were naturally saved. However, the 5 black-clothed cultivators directly merged into one. Everyone, why do you have to do this? The black-clothed cultivator who had fused into one instantly became spirited, his eyes clear and his voice pleasant. You will regret this. Late-stage God-burying realm. Suemo furrowed his brows slightly. Chapter 476. 5 bodies as one, late soul, burying realm. At this moment, the black-robed cultivator's eyes flickered and he smiled. He didn't look like a puppet at all, but more like a demonic cultivator. However, his black robe was loose, and it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Are you a puppet? Sumo asked again. The black-robed cultivator looked at Sumo and then smiled charmingly. In the vast universe between the worlds, who isn't a puppet? It's just that the person controlling them is different. Sumo raised an eyebrow. The black-robed cultivator's answer was irrelevant, but the meaning behind it was deep. The black-robed cultivator's eyes were a bit misty, filled with indescribable sorrow and joy. He then sighed softly. In truth, we are all puppets. It's just that the person controlling our fate is different. The person controlling the strings is different, so our paths are different. Suemo and the others furrowed their brows and remained silent. Then, the black-robed cultivator's eyes changed. He glanced at Sumo and the others, then said coldly, Actually, there's no need to say anything more. I'll ask you again, are you willing to offer your soul blood? Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang didn't want to answer this question. Sumo and the others shook their heads naturally. Originally, they weren't part of the list of soul blood sacrifices, but now it seemed they were treated the same. If you don't want to offer your soul blood, then offer it to the gods. You've missed your last chance. The black-robed cultivator shook his head in disappointment. Then, his lips curled up and his eyes turned cold. Who? The black-robed cultivator's robe fluttered as he spread his hands. Whoosh, whoosh. The black-robed cultivator was surrounded by black gas. At the same time, a death scythe with a black chain appeared in his hand. However, this death scythe was far better than the previous one. The black chain was like a dragon, its length unknown. The scythe was brighter than the moon, its demonic light shining in all directions. At this moment, the entire hall was filled with its aura. Sea Destroyer Divine Weapon. Li Ziliang couldn't help but look at Zhao Xiao. Zhao Xiao tilted her head and looked at Sumo. Little Master Su, are you guys confident? Sumo sneered. We've killed Sea Destroyer level puppets. What does a late-stage God Burial Realm cultivator amount to? Saying so, Sumo patted her inventory pouch. Who? Ghastly Shadow had already been recalled by him, and the 2 puppets, Reverend King and Tao Yao, had already flown out. As soon as they appeared, they didn't make any unnecessary movements and directly pounced towards the black-robed cultivator. At the same time, as soon as Yi Kanshing called out, a cloud of black mist appeared beneath his feet. Within the black fog was the black tortoise mythological beast. Currently, it had only recovered to the God-burying realm. However, the black tortoise was an extremely talented divine beast. Yi Kansheng stood on the ink tortoise and brandished the Mara star-chasing whip like a god. Crackle! The divine whip moved, and the black lightning was dozens of feet long. The entire hall was filled with thunder and lightning. In terms of magic treasures, the black-clothed cultivator's death scythe was nothing. The Mara star-chasing whip could control the sun and moon, and was a venerable realm divine weapon. However, the current Yi Kansheng was limited by his cultivation level, so he couldn't unleash its full power. Even so, the Mara star-chasing whip was enough to counter the death scythe. Boom! Crack! 2 lightning bolts directly hit the death scythe. Sparks flew everywhere, and the sound was like thunder. Yi Sanqing's expression was calm, but the black-clothed cultivator's expression changed slightly. This was because the death scythe was emitting waves of air that made its arm feel slightly numb. However, it didn't have much time to breathe. In the air, a sword ray was heading straight for it. It was Reverend King's puppet. Among Sumo's 3 great puppets, Reverend King's puppet was already somewhat different. Inside the ancient coin's secret realm, the Spider Lady's divine soul had entered its body. Therefore, Reverend King was even more agile now and no longer looked like a complete battle machine. ZZT, ZZT, ZZT. Reverend King's sword was invisible and formless. If the real Reverend King attacked, he could destroy the entire Netherworld city with a single strike. Unfortunately, it was only a puppet. However, the black-clothed cultivator's eyes narrowed when he saw the sword. Reverend King's sword. This was something that the black-clothed cultivator, or rather, the controller behind it, never expected. At the same time, Tao Yao's puppet made its move as well. With a flick of its sleeve, tens of thousands of branches spread out. Each branch was imbued with the power of the divine burial. It looked like an ancient peach tree with thousands of branches and leaves that swayed with the wind. Reverend King Tao Yao, Zhao Xiu's eyes flashed with shock. These were all soulless and Taoist people. How did they become Sumo's puppets? Reverend King, in particular, was no longer a puppet to Zhao Xiu. He was already half a cultivator. At the moment, the black-clothed cultivator was the most shocked of all. A venerable 1 divine weapon and 2 divine burial puppets. Such a force was enough to stir up a storm of blood in Nether City. Nether City had underestimated the power of Sumo and the others. The Bliss Palace could not stop them at all. That was because everyone knew that this was not Sumo and the others' most powerful force. Boom! Crack! The black-clothed cultivator quickly retreated. The scythe of the god of death danced like a black dragon, emitting endless divine burial power. The entire hall was filled with spiritual qi that clashed endlessly. Zhao Xiu and Li Ziliang quickly retreated to avoid being affected. Late-stage divine burial. The black-clothed cultivator's level was indeed higher. However, he did not gain the upper hand against the combined attack of the venerable 1 divine weapon and the divine burial puppets. Sumo squinted his eyes. He did not make another move. At this moment, Yu Wuji landed beside him. Countless fine white sand particles were scattered around her. Every grain of sand was a lethal weapon. Unfortunately, Palace Master Xiao Yao, by Shuelian, was nowhere to be seen. Sumo, I can kill that black-clothed puppet, Yu Wuji said coldly. There's no rush. Sumo nodded. Our greatest enemy should be behind us. The ones before us are just small fries. Save your strength for the critical moment. Don't make a move for now. All right. Yu Wuji nodded. Then he looked at the battlefield. The black-clothed cultivator was surrounded by King Mu's puppet, Tao Tian's puppet, and Yi Kansheng, who was riding a black tortoise. Yi Sanqing's main task was to suppress the black-clothed cultivator's scythe of the god of death. Crack! At this moment, Yi Sanqing's wrist suddenly shook. The Mara star-studded whip wrapped around the scythe of the god of death. The black-clothed cultivator frowned. He instinctively retracted the iron chain. However, Yi Kansheng stood on the black tortoise and did not move at all. Instead, he sneered. Puppet, your divine weapon is mine. As he spoke, Yi Kansheng gave one end of the Mara star-studded whip to the black tortoise. Roar! The divine beast raised its dragon head. It was extremely powerful, not to mention a late-stage divine burial cultivator. Even a sea extermination cultivator could not match its strength. Boom! Crack! The black tortoise suddenly pulled back. The black-clothed cultivator naturally would not let go. This puppet's design was to never let go of the divine weapon in its hand. There was no problem with the Mara star-studded whip. And the scythe of the god of death's chain could not withstand the pull of both sides, and abruptly broke. Yi Qiansheng reached out with one hand and took the scythe of the god of death, then threw it to Li Ziliang and smiled. "Fellow Taoist Li, your divine weapon is gone. This is for you." Li Ziliang did not expect to receive such a benefit. He naturally caught it with a happy expression. The black-clothed cultivator's expression changed. Without the divine weapon, he was like a tiger without claws and teeth. Even if he was a late-stage divine burial cultivator, he might not be able to stop his opponent. Chi-Chi, Hu. King Mu's sword pierced through the air. Tao Tian's fire engulfed the hall. Two purple robes fluttered like clouds. In an instant, the black-clothed cultivator was already devoured by their power. Chapter 477. Late-stage soul burial cultivators were powerful. However, the black-robe cultivator was sliced in half by Mu Wang's puppet. At the same time, it was engulfed by the heavenly peach flame. Within the orange flame, the black-robed cultivator seemed to want to struggle, but it couldn't escape. Just like that, a god-burying realm puppet was refined alive. It was a shocking scene. Other than Sumo, Yi Qiansheng, and Yu Wuji, no one expected this. This battle didn't take up too much time. Li Ziliang held the scythe of death in his hand, his eyes dazed. He really felt like he was dreaming. He even suspected that he had entered some kind of illusion again. Zhao Xiao took a deep breath. At the same time, she took out a pill and swallowed it. Then, he turned to Li Ziliang and smiled. "How is it?" "Liangzi, I told you we'll be fine. You look like you don't know much. You'll get used to it. They're all powerful people." "Huh?" Li Ziliang was speechless. Whoosh, whoosh. Along with the destruction of the black-clothed puppet, the scene in the hall changed abruptly. The hall that stretched out began to retract. The Hall of Immortal Desire returned to its original appearance at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, a door appeared in front of Sumo's group. The door of the Hall of Immortal Desire was completely open. Yi Qiansheng and Yu Wuji looked at Sumo. Sumo smiled. She put away the two puppets and said, "Let's go." Sumo walked in front, followed by Yi Qiansheng, Yu Wuji, Zhao Xiao, and Li Ziliang. The five of them slowly walked out of the Hall of Immortal Desire. Creak! After Sumo's group came out, the door of the Hall of Immortal Desire slammed shut. A rather spacious bluestone path appeared beneath their feet. "Congratulations, seniors, for obtaining the path of ultimate bliss." Sumo's group looked and saw that it was the two nascent soul female cultivators who lured them into the Hall of Dream Death. However, they had changed into colorful dresses and were dressed very simply and elegantly. The two female cultivators were quite solemn. His eyes and brows were completely different from when he lured Sumo and the others into the Bliss Palace. "Oh, hee. Sumo laughed. "Ladies, it seems like you've been waiting here for a long time. Senior, our palace master invites you over. Please follow me." One of the female cultivators said calmly. "Very good. I was just about to pay you a visit." Sumo nodded with a smile. The two female cultivators didn't say anything else and turned around to lead the way. The Bliss Palace was indeed an interesting place. Sumo and the others each had their own thoughts, but they still followed the footsteps of the two female cultivators. The scenery around them was still extraordinary, and they hadn't walked very far. However, Sumo and the others all felt that the surrounding scenery was changing extremely quickly. One step, one scene. Under the guidance of the two female cultivators, they seemed to be walking in a special tunnel. Moreover, the density of the surrounding spiritual energy was clearly changing. The spiritual energy was getting denser and denser. Sumo watched everything without saying a word, but his eyes were gradually turning black. That was his demon eye. In an instant, the exquisite scenery around them disappeared. In Sumo's eyes, they were really walking in a strange tunnel. Moreover, the cultivation level of the two female cultivators was increasing along with their footsteps. Nascent soul, transformation, deity's tribulation, early stage undead, mid-stage undead, late-stage undead, deity burying. Sumo's footsteps slowed down as he hesitated slightly. The two female cultivators of deity burying were leading the way for them. Where were they going? However, just as Sumo was hesitating, the two female cultivators in front had already stopped in their tracks. When he looked again, Sumo and the others were already standing outside a grand hall. The grand hall was extremely tall and majestic. It was definitely not something that palaces like Mengxi and Xiao Yao could compare to. From Sumo's perspective, the grand hall was about the same size as the heavenly speech palace in the undead nation. There were 3 steps in front of the grand hall. Each step was further divided into 18 steps. Each step was 1.5 feet tall. Moreover, the color of the steps was quite interesting. Black and white alternated, and each step changed. Walking on the steps, one would feel a sense of yin and yang. It was a strange feeling. At the same time, there was a pair of couplets carved on both sides of the grand hall. The 9 levels of ultimate bliss, but ultimate bliss is a dream. The first palace of all realms. First but 3 lives? There was a horizontal board in the middle of the grand hall. The black board was wide. However, there was not a single word on the board. Sumo looked at the couplets and could not help but chuckle. What kind of person was the palace lord of Bliss Palace? The couplets were obviously a rejection of the couplets at the Bliss Palace's mountain gate. That wordless horizontal board had a deeper meaning. Everyone, please follow us into the palace. The 2 female cultivators turned around and invited them. Sumo and the others did not hold back. They walked up the steps and headed straight for the nameless grand hall. The doors of the grand hall were wide open, and the interior was lavishly decorated. In the middle of the grand hall was still a high platform. There was also a large chair on the platform. The layout was similar to that of the other halls. However, there was a cultivator dressed in white sitting on the chair on the platform. A male cultivator? Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Yu Wuji were all slightly stunned. The palace lord of Bliss Palace was a male cultivator? That was not something they had expected. Sumo, especially, had Linghu Yihuan before her, so he had formed a fixed mindset. How could the palace lord of Bliss Palace be a male cultivator? Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang were stunned as well. While the palace lord of Bliss Palace was a mysterious person, it was said that the palace lord of Bliss Palace was a venomous beauty. They did not expect the one sitting in the middle of the grand hall to be a male cultivator. At the same time, they noticed that the male cultivator was extremely beautiful. The kind of beauty reminded them of Xiao Luo back in the day. That kind of beauty had an extremely enchanting aura. However, he had a strong sense of gender. He was a male cultivator. There was no doubt about that. Young Master Su, this palace lord of Bliss Palace is almost as handsome as you were back then. Zhao Xiao smiled at Sumo. He's just a bag of skin. Sumo smiled. However, he's still a little lacking compared to me back then. Sumo and Zhao Xiao joked around for a bit. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji could not help but look at each other. They could not tell who Zhao Xiao was at the moment. However, since Zhao Xiao could talk to Sumo like that, they must have been very familiar with each other back then. Sumo and the others walked forward. At the same time, they noticed 2 female cultivators standing on both sides of the steps. 2 of them were none other than Chu Xiangxiang and Bai Shuilian. 4 palace lords? Sumo and the others guessed. Welcome, everyone. I've been waiting for you for a long time. The palace lord of Bliss Palace stood up and walked down the platform, cupping his hands in greeting. The 2 female cultivators who led Su and Mo to stand behind the palace master of Blissful Palace in a natural manner. They were divinity graveyard cultivators. By the looks of it, the status of these 2 so-called bellboys was even higher than that of the 4 palace lords. Yes, Sumo hesitated for a moment. I am Linghu Yihuan. The white-robed cultivator smiled naturally. Linghu Yihuan? Sumo's eyes were filled with disbelief at that moment. Chapter 478. Ling Hu He Huan? Sumo was surprised to hear the white-robed cultivator's words. She had seen Ling Hu He Huan with her own eyes. Why would another Ling Hu He Huan appear now? Moreover, it was a male cultivator. Someone with the same name? A ridiculous reason flashed across Sumo's mind. However, there was no other reason apart from that ridiculous reason. In fact, it was not just Sumo. Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, Zhao Xiao, and Li Ziliang were stunned as well. They were all cultivators of the Netherworld. Almost everyone in the Netherworld city knew about Ling Hu He Huan's undying beauty. However, why would the white-robed cultivator call himself Ling Hu He Huan? Nobody in the entire Netherworld would dare to use Ling Hu He Huan's name. The white-robed cultivator smiled when he saw everyone's surprise. Don't be surprised. I'm not lying. I am Ling Hu He Huan, the Palace Lord of the Bliss Palace in the Netherworld City. Sumo and the others tried their best to suppress their emotions. Sumo greets Palace Lord Ling Hu. Sumo cupped her fists. The others cupped their fists as well. However, the white-robed cultivator's cultivation level was rather vague. Nobody could tell what his cultivation level was. It felt like they were facing a mortal. Everyone, please take a seat, the white-robed cultivator said. The four lords of the Bliss Palace waved their hands at the same time. Several chairs appeared in the hall. Sumo and the others sat down right away. The white-robed cultivator sat on a high chair as well. Congratulations on passing the 4 halls of bliss and regaining your freedom. The white-robed cultivator smiled faintly. Over the years, only a handful of cultivators have been able to make it here. Oh, Sumo spoke plainly as well. That means we're here thanks to Palace Lord Ling Hu. The Bliss Palace is famous for its beauty. We came here because of its reputation, but we didn't expect it to be a tiger's den. It was a narrow escape. Palace Lord Ling Hu, you owe us an explanation. He, the white-robed Ling Hu He Huan nodded. You're right, young Master Su. Don't worry. You will understand everything. The reason I invited all of you here is not only because you have passed the 4 palaces of bliss, but also because young Master Su said that you would like to see Ling Hu He Huan. Is that true? Of course. Sumo glanced at Chu Xiangxiang. It seemed that she had already reported everything. But Palace Lord Ling Hu, you're definitely not the person I'm looking for. Huh? The white-robed Ling Hu He Huan laughed. Understood. Young Master Su is looking for Princess Ling Hu, not Palace Lord Ling Hu. Oh, Sumo didn't quite understand. The undying beauty is the princess of the 9 serenities. I'm just the palace master in charge of the Bliss Palace. The white-robed Ling Hu He Huan explained. Do you really have the same name? Sumo asked. Hee. The corners of Ling Hu He Huan's mouth curled up strangely, but he didn't answer Sumo's question. By the way, the Ling Hu He Huan I've met is also the palace master of the Bliss Palace, Sumo said. And she's a peerless beauty. Am I not a peerless beauty? The white-robed Ling Hu He Huan said. At the same time, a hint of mockery and charm flashed across his eyes. That kind of expression would never appear on a male cultivator's face. However, Sumo and the others didn't notice anything amiss. It was as natural as nature itself. Charm, and peerless beauty were just as suitable for the white-robed cultivator. At that moment, they were all reminded of the black-robed cultivator puppet they had just killed. Why was the Bliss Palace filled with hermaphrodites? Young Master Su, I'm just joking. Of course, I'm not the one you want to see. But I heard that you have a good reason to see Princess Ling Hu. The white-robed Ling Hu He Huan said. That's right, Sumo said. But can you guarantee that I'll be able to see her? That depends on whether your reason is powerful or not, young Master Su. The white-robed Ling Hu He Huan smiled faintly. Young Master Su, do you know where we are? What do you mean? Sumo asked with a frown. Isn't this the headquarters of the Bliss Palace? This is the Bliss Palace, but it's not the Bliss Palace at the same time. The white-robed Ling Hu He Huan's words always seemed to be veiled in mystery, and it was unpleasant to listen to. The Bliss Palace of the Underworld City is on the 9th floor, but this is the 15th floor of the Underworld City? Sumo's eyes glinted. At that moment, he figured out what was going on with the tunnel he saw and why the spiritual chi around him was getting thicker. In fact, they had just gone from the 9th floor to the 15th floor. This floor was the territory of the Linghu clan. "You're smart, young Master Su," the white-robed Linghu He Huan praised. "To be honest, the puny Bliss Palace is nothing but the eyes and ears of the Linghu clan. I'm inviting you on behalf of the Linghu clan." Oh, Sumo's heart skipped a beat, but he did not let it show. "How am I worthy of such favor?" "There's no need to be humble, young Master Su. The process of going through the 3 halls was but a test. In the end, you confirmed some of our thoughts." The white-robed Linghu He Huan smiled. "Now, all that's left is your reason, young Master Su." "Very well." Sumo nodded. Now that things had come to this, Sumo could sense that he was not too far away from the secrets of the underworld city. On the 15th floor of the underworld city, the Linghu clan was definitely the core of the underworld city. They might even be a leading force. Be it if Sumo wanted to leave the underworld city or figure out the relationship between the underworld city and Tianfu city, he would need the Linghu clan's power. At that thought, Sumo no longer hesitated. He patted his storage pouch and took out the token that Linghu He Huan had given him back on the Bone Continent. The 3-inch token was completely black. The 2 ancient characters' 9 hells shone with a quaint brilliance. The 9 hells' ancient token. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji already knew that Sumo had such a token on him, but Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang did not. However, they knew about the existence of the 9 hells' ancient token. "Little Master Su, the Dark Lord Hehe, it seems that some people, no matter how they reincarnate, will always be at the top. In a hidden world, he can still command the wind and clouds." Zhao Xiao exclaimed in his heart. Whoosh! At the moment when Sumo took out the 9 hells' ancient token, apart from the white-robed Linghu He Huan, the other 6 female cultivators, and the female cultivators who did not even catch Sumo's attention, all the cultivators from the Bliss Palace knelt on one knee. With the holy token above, life and death are not to be questioned. The path of yin and yang, serve my soul. The entire hall was buzzing with voices. This scene caused Su Mo and the others to be somewhat at a loss. What was that? Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang were cultivators of the underworld city as well, but they never knew that seeing the 9 hells' ancient token required this. At that moment, the white-robed Linghu He Huan stared blankly at the token in Sumo's hand. He was still sitting on the big chair. He did not kneel, but his eyes flickered and his voice was rather excited. "Young Master Su, how did you get this token? Outside the 9 hells on the Bone Continent." "Linghu He Huan gave it to me personally," Sumo said while holding the token. Chapter 479. Linghu He Huan had given to him on the Bone mainland outside the 9 hells. The white-robed Linghu He Huan frowned slightly after hearing Sumo's words. He remained silent for a while. The 9 hells' ancient token in Sumo's hand was definitely real. The white-robed Linghu He Huan's divine consciousness could tell whether it was real or fake. It was a genuine 9 hells' ancient token, and a rather special one at that. "Did you really see her outside the 9 hells?" The white-robed Linghu He Huan looked at Sumo suspiciously. "Of course." Sumo nodded. Then he waved his other hand lightly. The image of Linghu He Huan that he had seen on the Bone mainland all those years ago appeared in front of him. The white robe was loose, but accentuated her womanly figure. Her hair was loose, and her feet were bare. She was a heavenly beauty. Her skin was smooth, and there seemed to be a hidden fragrance. Linghu He Huan wore no makeup, and she was elegant and refined. Her watery eyes were clear, and there was not the slightest hint of seduction in her eyes. Instead, she was as tranquil as a lotus, without any hint of seduction. It was a combination of extreme contradictions, languid and seductive, pure and holy. She was an unparalleled woman. "It's her." The white-robed cultivator had a strange look in his eyes. His tone was special. He seemed to be surprised, but it was within his expectations. "There's also a Bliss Palace on the Bone mainland, and it's also famous for its beauty. Many male cultivators flocked to it. There's even a saying on the Bone mainland: those who ask for a linghu ask for joy. Those who get a linghu ask for more joy. Sumo said, "Oh, hee hee." The white-robed linghu, Huan's lips curled up, but it was a helpless smile. He then asked, "Mr. Su, she wouldn't have given you this token for no reason, would she?" "Of course not." Sumo said, "According to her, she was ordered by the Lord of Nine Hells City to hunt down traitors of Nine Hells." "The Lord of Nine Hells order? Traitors of Nine Hells?" The white-robed cultivator narrowed his eyes. "Yes, the Li brothers, Li Yuani and Li Yuanchu." Sumo looked at the white-clad cultivator. "What is it? Aren't these two people in the Nine Nether City? Li Yuani, Li Yuanchu." The white-clad cultivator frowned slightly before shaking his head. "It's not that there aren't any. They were all members of the Li clan and had once been extremely outstanding figures. They did crawl out of the 9 underworlds, and they admitted that they were innocent." "That's right," Sumo said. "I once helped Palace Master Linghu eliminate that traitor of the 9 Netherrealm. In order to express her gratitude, she gave me this token." Sumo's words were true. However, everyone at the scene was a little baffled by what they heard. It was also the first time that Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji had heard about these things from Sumo. After listening to Sumo's words, Linghu Huan couldn't help but smile wryly, then let out a long sigh, muttering to himself, "The city lord's order? Hee hee. But how can the 9th Hell ancient token be given away so easily? Those who seek the Linghu seek joy. Those who obtain the Linghu seek joy." The white-clad cultivator sat on the high platform and muttered to himself. His expression was somewhat dazed. He seemed to be thinking of something, but he couldn't figure it out. Sumo and the others didn't say anything. Everything in front of them was also a mystery to Sumo. The 9 underworlds seemed to be hiding an enormous secret. "Young Master Su," the white-clad cultivator finally regained his composure. "Did that Palace Master Linghu say anything special to you in the end?" "In the end? Special words?" Sumo frowned. This was because he had to carefully recall this. After the battle at the Immortal Temple, Li Yuani and Li Yuanchu failed to control the White Bones. The mute master flew into the sky ditch and disappeared. Miao Long came on a lotus platform and brought Guan Xiong away. Then, Linghu Huan also said goodbye to Sumo. Sumo recalled the last words. "Fellow Taoist Su, I hope that you can find that woman surnamed Mu." "Hee hee. Actually, my surname was also Mu." The Bliss Palace is definitely not a filthy place. However, the public's words can melt gold, and the accumulated slander can erode the bones. Hee hee hee. Sumo finally recalled Linghu Huan's words and relayed them to the white-clad cultivator. The white-clad cultivator shook his head repeatedly with a complicated expression. "Young Master Su, what is the name of the woman surnamed Mu you're looking for?" "Mu Jinghong." Sumo's gaze turned cold. "Does Palace Master Linghu know her?" "Mu Jinghong." The white-clad cultivator shook his head. "There is no such person in Nether City. It seems that this person is very important to young Master Su." The white-clad Linghu Huan keenly captured the change in Sumo's mood. "Very important." Sumo nodded, but didn't say anything else. At this time, the white-clad Linghu Huan also calmed down and smiled at Sumo. "Young Master Su, let's get back to business. You have a good reason to find Princess Linghu. However, we need to talk in another place." "Oh, a guest should follow the host's wishes," Sumo replied. At the same time, he put away the 9 underworld ancient order. From the looks of it, the value of the ancient order might be higher than he had expected. The white-clad cultivator rose and moved slightly, landing in front of Sumo and the others. "Jin Feng, Yu Lu, lead the 4 hall masters and guard the 2 passages on the 15th floor. No one is allowed to enter or leave without my permission for 3 days. Anyone who disobeys will be killed." The white-clad cultivator issued a very special order. "Yes, I understand." The 2 who answered were the 2 female cultivators who had been leading the way for Sumo and the others. In truth, They were the left and right guardians of Bliss Palace, and their status was second only to the white-clad cultivator. The two gods of burial were enough to keep many in check. Please come with me. The white-clad Linghu, He Huan, was very polite. Sumo and the others followed him out of the hall and turned into a corridor on the side. After passing through the long corridor, they seemed to have reached the back of the hall. There seemed to be a small mountain not far away, and there was an antique house on the mountainside. Immortal mist lingered, appearing and disappearing from time to time. The small mountain seemed to be very close. However, Sumo and the others followed the white-clad cultivator for half an hour. Their pace was not slow at all, and they finally arrived outside the house. When they turned around, the nameless Bliss Palace was already very far away. The old house on a mountainside was very old. An aura of vicissitudes came rushing at them. The door was made of black wood and had a golden knocker. It was a simple design. There was a horizontal plaque hanging on the lintel of the door, but there were only two ancient words on it. Linghu. Everyone, this is the house of the Linghu clan's elder ancestor. The white-clad cultivator turned around and introduced, "Young Master Su. Someone will answer your questions soon." "Thank you." Sumo nodded. At the same time, Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, Zhao Xiao, and Li Ziliang felt their hearts clench to varying degrees. Elder ancestor Linghu was definitely one of the top figures in Juyo City. If the Bliss Palace was a dangerous place, then this place might very well be the gate of life and death. After all, the Linghu clan's attitude was not very clear. That being said, since Sumo had the confidence, they would naturally accompany her with their lives. In an instant, two immortal children appeared at the door of the old house. They had rosy lips and white teeth, and looked to be no more than 12 or 13 years old. The two immortal children did not speak. They merely bowed deeply at the white-clad cultivator. Creak! The two immortal children then turned around, and the black door of the Linghu mansion opened. The white-clad cultivator turned around and invited them. Sumo and the others stepped into the Linghu mansion. Chapter 480. The Linghu mansion was actually a different kind of cave mansion. The two celestial children were only responsible for opening the door. They did not lead the way. With the white-robed Linghu, He Huan there, they did not need to do anything. The white-robed Linghu, He Huan did not say anything. He walked in front and went straight to the backyard. Along the way, Sumo and the others did not see any cultivators. The doors and windows of the mansion were closed. There were many cultivators' auras in the yard, but they seemed to be cultivating. The huge courtyard was unexpectedly silent. It was solemn and depressing. In the backyard, there was a small courtyard all to itself. The green courtyard had two wooden doors. They looked old and mottled. The white-robed Linghu, He Huan, stood at the door. He bowed slightly and said softly, "He Huan wants to see the ancestor. Come in." An old voice came from the courtyard. The white-robed Linghu, He Huan, gently pushed the door open and led Sumo and the others into the small courtyard. The small courtyard was just one courtyard. There was a main house and two wings. It was very quiet and unique. In the courtyard, an unknown ancient tree reached the sky. Its lush branches and leaves almost covered the entire courtyard. The white-robed Linghu, He Huan, led Sumo and the others straight to the main house. "Everyone, the ancestor is in the house." Sumo and the others nodded respectfully. At the door of the main house, before the white-robed Linghu, He Huan, said anything, the two doors opened naturally. "Welcome." An old voice came. The group stepped into the house, and the two doors closed gently. Instantly, the entire house was dark. Sumo and the others were stunned. Immediately, 3 candles floated in the air. Under the lights, the entire house was empty. There were no furnishings at all. There was only an old man and Linghu sitting cross-legged in the middle of the house. The old man in Linghu was thin and withered. He had white hair, cloudy eyes, and wrinkles. He looked very weak. He was like a mortal with 1 foot in the grave. Sumo frowned. This was because this old man was in the early stage of breaking world. However, his lifespan did not seem to be much longer. "Cough, cough. I am Linghu Sheng. The white-haired old man coughed lightly twice, then looked at Sumo and the rest, and smiled warmly. Everyone, please take a seat. All mortal etiquette no longer exists in this old man's eyes. Please forgive me. Greetings, Senior. Senior is too polite. Sumo bowed in greeting. Yi Kansheng and the others were not lacking in manners. White-robed Linghu, He Huan led everyone to sit on the ground. Who was the holder of the 9 nether ancient token? The white-haired old man, Linghu Sheng, asked the cultivator in white. This is young Master Su. The white-clad Linghu, He Huan introduced. Young Master Su, may I have a look at your ancient token? Linghu Sheng asked gently. Senior, please. Sumo reached out her hand and held the ancient token in her hand again. That ancient medallion was very strange. At this moment, the room was a little dark, but it still emitted a faint glow. Sumo originally wanted a hand over the ancient token to Linghu Sheng Iguan. However, Linghu Sheng did not accept the ancient token. Instead, as soon as the ancient token appeared, he looked at it and immediately knelt on one knee. In the presence of the sacred token, life and death are not to be questioned. The path of yin and yang, sir my soul. Linghu Sheng's voice was desolate and pious, and it even trembled slightly. It was obvious that the ancient token had made him extremely excited. However, Sumo and the others did not expect this to happen. Although many cultivators had knelt in the nameless hall earlier, white-robed Linghu, He Huan, did not move at all. At this moment, white-robed Linghu, He Huan's expression was calm, and he still did not kneel. However, forefather Linghu was kneeling. This did not make sense. Was white-robed Linghu's status higher than forefather Linghu's? However, it was not convenient for Sumo to ask questions at this time. I didn't expect to see the 9 nether ancient token in my lifetime. Hee. After kneeling, Linghu Sheng sat cross-legged again. I die without regrets. I die without regrets. Young Master Su, I heard that this token was given to you by a female cultivator from the Bone Mainland. Linghu Huan? That's right. Sumo replied. Linghu Sheng nodded with a smile. Young Master Su, then you're a reincarnator of the 3 realms, right? Sumo was taken aback by this question. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji's expressions also shifted. Zhao Xiu stared blankly at Linghu Sheng. Li Ziliang was baffled. White-robed Linghu, He Huan's expression was calm. A reincarnator of the 3 realms should be a secret. Sumo did not expect that Linghu Sheng would ask such a question after only a few words. Senior Linghu, what do you mean? Sumo did not admit it immediately. After all, she did not know what kind of existence the Linghu clan was. Hee. Linghu Sheng laughed, the wrinkles on his face smoothing out. Rest assured, young Master Su, I dare not guarantee anything else, but I can guarantee your absolute safety on the 15th floor of Nether City. Moreover, I am someone you could trust. It is no secret that reincarnators of the 3 realms are here with me. Senior, are you a reincarnator of the 3 realms? Sumo asked. No. Linghu Sheng smiled bitterly. I am not. But Linghu Sheng paused, as if about to reveal a secret that had been hidden in his heart for many years. But I'm a descendant of the 3 realms. What? Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Yu Wuji's expressions changed at Linghu Sheng's words. A descendant of the 3 realms? To be precise, all the cultivators of Nether City are actually descendants of the 3 realms. Linghu Sheng's tone was filled with vicissitudes. All the cultivators of Nether City were descendants of the 3 realms. Sumo looked at Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Sumo looked at Zhao Xiu, who shook her head with a bitter smile. Although he was a cultivator of Nether City, he really did not know this. However, there should be a difference between the reincarnators of the 3 realms and the descendants of the 3 realms. One was reincarnated, while the other had yet to reincarnate. Those who appeared in the hidden world of the 3 realms without reincarnation should have had great fortuitous encounters. For example, Han Bingi. However, in the entire 3 realms, there was only one Han Bingi. Were the cultivators of Nether City really descendants of the three realms? We are visitors from a foreign land, curled up in the depths of the Pure Land. At the same time, we are sinners for generations. Ling Husheng muttered to himself like an ordinary old man. Senior Ling Hu, I would like to hear the details. Sumo said solemnly. Ling Husheng nodded and sighed. You were chosen by the ancestral god, and you came with the ancient token. You should have known everything from the start. The ancestral god? Sumo's mind was a mess of questions. Young Master Su, everything starts from the distant past. Ling Husheng sighed, his gaze somewhat distant. However, I do not know what era it was. However, everything I'm saying is what I've heard with my own ears. The Linghu clan has been passed down from generation to generation. I am the 33rd generation of the Linghu clan. It is said that this story has been passed down by word of mouth, originating from the 7th generation of the Linghu clan. Ling Husheng's tone was extremely solemn, as if he was preaching the great Tao. In reality, when the Linghu clan passed down this story, it was indeed a kind of great Tao. The great Tao of the indestructible three realms. Chapter 481. The ancestors sat cross-legged in the Linghu mansion. Sumo and the others formed a semicircle, as if listening to the great Tao. Only the white-robed Linghu He Huan sat ramrod straight, but his eyes were slightly drooping, as if his mind was wandering. Ling Husheng's voice was bleak and distant. His narration seemed to have traversed through thousands of years of time. It was an extremely old story. Everything begins with the shattering of the galaxy. Ling Husheng's eyes shone with reminiscence and hope. In truth, I've never seen a galaxy. In fact, not since the 2nd generation patriarch of the Linghu clan. However, it is said that the Milky Way is resplendent and beautiful. In the boundless universe, only the galaxy is our true home. Ling Husheng said. These words were left behind by the Linghu clan's 1st generation old ancestor. Senior, do you know why the three realms galaxy shattered? Sumo asked. It was a question he had always wanted to know the answer to. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji also looked at Ling Husheng. Unfortunately, Ling Husheng shook his head. We, the Linghu clan, don't know the reason why the Milky Way shattered. In other words, you won't be able to find the answer in the Pure Land world. Ling Husheng sighed. That's because when the first ancestral master woke up after the three realms shattered, he was already in a wasteland. At that time, there was no such thing as Pure Land. Oh, Sumo raised her eyebrows. However, he immediately understood. That was because everything was normal. Wasn't he the same? When he woke up in the Silent Death Valley, wasn't he also unable to explain everything? The first founding master once said, they're the survivors of the three realms galaxy, as well as the unfortunate ones, Ling Husheng said. Them? Who else? Sumo asked. It said that there were many cultivators from the three realms who were stranded in the Pure Land world with the 1st generation patriarch. However, why did they survive the galactic destruction? This is a mystery. Perhaps they really are the survivors chosen by God. Ling Husheng smiled bitterly. That should have been thousands of years ago. Back then, it was said that the Pure Land world was very barren, and the spiritual energy was extremely thin. This world was not suitable for cultivation at all. However, the descendants of the three realms struggled bitterly. After tens of thousands of years, they finally survived and had their own domain. However, the Pure Land world is also changing. 1,000,000 years later, the original cultivators of the Pure Land world appeared. Their talents far surpassed the cultivators of the Star River. After another 1,000,000 years, they launched an attack on the descendants of the three realms. That was an unprecedented battle. Ling Husheng's eyes turned cold. Blood flowed like a river, and countless cultivators perished. Both the cultivators of the Pure Land and the descendants of the three realms paid a heavy price. The descendants of the three realms would only be able to survive. There are only 5 great surnames left. The current 5 great families of Nether City? Sumo asked. That's right. Ling Hu Sheng nodded. Originally, the descendants of the three realms possessed the central continent of the Pure Land. However, that great battle caused that continent to gradually sink. The sea of bitterness covers everything. It was a disaster that could be called the end of the world. That was the most desperate time for the descendants of the three realms. The cultivators of the Pure Land world wanted to exterminate the descendants of the three realms. Ling Hu Sheng's murky eyes flashed with a cold light. Because, in their eyes, we are a different race. We took over their resources. But at that time, God appeared. Ling Hu Sheng let out a long sigh. That sigh was too complicated, too meaningful. God? Sumo and the others were stunned. Because this was the second time Ling Hu Sheng mentioned God. From the looks of it, it was not an illusory existence. Yes, God. Ling Hu Sheng said confidently. The God of the Pure Land. The survivors of the three realms met God. What kind of existence is that? Sumo asked. Ling Hu Sheng shook his head. His murky eyes did not have a trace of spirit. I don't know. The appearance of God has not been passed down in the 9 underworlds. We only know that he is omnipotent. He can create a world, and he can also destroy a world. God helped the descendants of the three realms. Ling Hu Sheng paused. If that's what you call helping them. Ling Hu Sheng's words made Sumo and the others frown. There was definitely more to this sentence, and its meaning was quite profound. The God of the Pure Land changed the world. He stopped the cultivators of the Pure Land from hunting down the descendants of the three realms, and helped us create the Netherworld realm. The name Pure Land was decided by God. Did he have something he wanted? Sumo said with a sneer. Hee. Young Master Su, you're right. Ling Hu Sheng nodded. Who in the universe doesn't have anything they want? For the sake of survival, or perhaps for the sake of the descendants of the three realms, the 7-generation ancestors established a contract with God. What contract? Sumo instinctively furrowed her brows. Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, and the others also felt a chill in their hearts. After all, there was no way such a contract was equal. Sure enough, Ling Hu Sheng smiled in pain. A contract of sacrifice. Ling Hu Sheng's voice was low and slow. The descendants of the three realms must stay in the Netherworld forever and can't appear on the surface of the Pure Land. Moreover, cultivators at the peak of the undead realm and above must be prepared to offer sacrifices at any time. How do they offer sacrifices? Sumo asked. They must offer their entire body and soul to God. Ling Hu Sheng said with difficulty. They will become God's puppets. What? Sumo raised her eyebrows. What's the point of living like that? Ling Hu Sheng shook his head. Young Master Su, you're right. However, on one side, their race will be exterminated, and on the other side, they'll have to live. If it were you, what would you choose? In the eyes of the ancestors, we are the last seedlings of the three realms. Actually, they had no other choice. After all, there was still hope if they were alive. Moreover, the ancestors didn't know about the existence of the so-called reincarnated beings. We, the descendants of the three realms, are like duckweed in the vast universe. Sigh. Sumo sighed and slowly nodded. That was indeed the case. From his point of view, they couldn't be blamed for their choice back then. In fact, it was a sign of great wisdom and courage. The ancestors of that generation believed that we had sold our souls and even the dignity of the three realms. Therefore, they believed that the Netherworld was guilty. The original sin? Sumo said. Ling Hu Sheng nodded. Once you enter the Netherworld, you can't turn back. With the original sin on your body, you won't perish for eternity. That was a warning to the cultivators who wanted to enter the Netherworld realm. The cultivators of the Pure Land could enter the Netherworld, but they couldn't enter it carelessly, because from a certain point of view, this place is hell. Gods, devils, immortals, skeletons, and beauties. Sins are unforgivable. Repent and be saved. That was a warning to the people who wanted to escape from the Netherworld. After all, this was their final resting place. If the cultivators of the three realms left the Netherworld, they might bring disaster to the entire Netherworld. Moreover, that kind of thing really happened. God was once furious. The netherworld was almost destroyed. Afterward, the netherworld's secret realm was created, and Tianfu City was built above the netherworld. Ling Hu Sheng said, Tianfu City exists to monitor the netherworld and even the Pure Land. Tianfu City monitors the netherworld. Sumo recalled Yi Wu Hui in Tianfu City and couldn't help but inwardly suck in a breath of cold air. Chapter 482. The Netherworld's secret realm and Tianfu City were both existences that controlled the Netherworld realm. Ling Husheng's words made Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, Zhao Xiao, and Li Ziliang look at each other in surprise. After all, they were all cultivators of the Netherworld. All of the 9 Nether Mystery Realms are, in fact, a place to select the sacrificial offerings, or puppets. Ling Husheng said helplessly. It's a pity that all the cultivators in the 9 Nether Secret Realms are attracted to it. What's going on with the Netherworld's secret realm? Why didn't you tell them the truth? This time, it was Yi Kansheng who asked. He had entered the Netherworld's secret realm twice. If it wasn't for Sumo, he would have suffered the second time. The truth? Hee. Ling Husheng smiled bitterly. Who would believe the truth? The secret realm did give them the possibility of advancing. Moreover, it seems that all the cultivators who didn't choose had their memories implanted. All the cultivators who came back were treasures. Actually, there were no secret realms or nether cities in the early days of the Netherworld realm, and there were no 9 divisions. However, as the Netherworld realm grew stronger, 9 divisions were formed. The descendants of the 5 great families built nether cities. From then on, it became the center of the Netherworld. Of course, there were other descendants of the 3 realms scattered in different divisions of the Netherworld. However, as time passed, time became heartless. Apart from the ancestors of the 5 great families, the other descendants of the 3 realms gradually forgot who they were. In other words, they didn't even know that they were descendants of the 3 realms. I'm also a descendant of the 3 realms? Where's the 3 realms? Li Ziliang looked at Ling Hu Sheng in confusion. Hee. Look, Ling Hu Sheng smiled helplessly and sadly. In the Netherworld, most of the cultivators have the blood of the 3 realms and the Milky Way. However, we don't even know. Moreover, you don't even know whether you are puppets or not. This is the current situation of the cultivators of the Netherworld. I'm not a puppet, Li Ziliang said. The others frowned and listened, not saying anything. The contract of sacrifice has changed over the course of millions of years. Perhaps God didn't need too many sacrificial offerings anymore. Therefore, apart from Nether City, the other tribes only rely on secret realms to select their sacrificial offerings. Nether City, on the other hand, selects its sacrificial offerings from cultivators above Undead Realm. What about those below the Undead Realm? Sumo asked. Let them live or die. In the eyes of God, they are worthless existences. Ling Hu Sheng said. Doesn't that mean that only disciples of the 5 great clans or cultivators from sects related to them will be chosen as sacrifices? Li Ziliang asked. Ordinary cultivators are fine. That's right. Ling Husheng nodded. We, the 5 great clans, are immoral and incompetent. It was us who trapped you in the 9 underworlds. So, this was the only way to protect the peace of the descendants of the 3 realms. How sad is that? Now, the 5 great clans are actually filled with sacrificial people. Ling Husheng paused again. A trace of sadness flashed across his eyes, but it was soon drowned by a kind of determination. In the end, they are all people who deserve to be killed. At that moment, the white-robed Ling Hu Huan, who had been sitting upright, seemed to sigh softly. At that moment, the ones who were the most shocked were actually Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang. Although Zhao Xiao was a reincarnator, he was also a pure Nether City cultivator. For many years, Nether City cultivators thought that the 5 great clans controlled everything, and many cultivators had long been dissatisfied. This included Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang, who had always held a grudge against the 5 great clans. They never thought that they would only find out the truth today. For many years, it was actually the 5 great clans who silently bore all the suffering and gave peace and worry-free to the ordinary cultivators of Nether City. At that moment, a sense of reverence rose in Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang's hearts. Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and Yu Wuji also let out a long sigh in their hearts. The truth of this world was often like this: ridiculous, lamentable, and sad. Perhaps this is our fate, Linghu Sheng said slowly. But this way, we can completely atone for our sins. Atone for our sins? Sumo shook her head. Senior, it doesn't matter which ancestor made the decision. What sins did you commit? You already did your best to do everything. After all, the enemies you faced were too strong. They weren't existences you could contend against. The netherworld is simply a cage. Those who know the truth are the ones who suffer the most. Sumo said gravely. That's right. The netherworld is a cage. Linghu Sheng nodded. Time has passed, and not everyone in the 5 great clans has no complaints. Therefore, the so-called sinless people have appeared in the netherworld realm. They have always wanted to leave the netherworld. Leaving the netherworld is not wrong. Why not? Don't tell me that they have always been here. Yi Kansheng said. Next to him, Yu Wuji also nodded. Actually, they firmly believed in the sinless people. Hee. Linghu Sheng shook his head. Of course, leaving the netherworld is not wrong. Actually, the so-called sinless people also yearn to leave the netherworld day and night. It's just that we are calmer and more restrained. The strength of Tianfu City far exceeds your imagination. So much so that there's no need for the cultivators of Tianfu City to descend into the netherworld. The one who makes the sacrifice can suppress everything. If we don't have absolute strength and act rashly, we can only let the netherworld be destroyed. In the eyes of us old guys, the so-called sinless people are just messing around. It's not that I'm pessimistic. It's that we don't have the strength to contend against Tianfu City, let alone the god of the Pure Land. Linghu Sheng said. Yi Kansheng and Yu Wuji wanted to say something else. However, Sumo nodded earnestly. What Senior Linghu said is correct. I've seen the strength of Tianfu City with my own eyes. I'm afraid that cultivators of the graveyard deity burial realm won't even be enough to guard the entrance of Tianfu City. Really? Yu Wuji asked. Hee. Of course it's true. Sumo smiled helplessly. Actually, I've been to Tianfu City once. However, I've only seen the tip of the iceberg. What's the realm of the cultivators inside? Yi Kansheng asked. Realm? Sumo shook her head. For now, that's something we can only reach. According to the person I met, Tianfu City is only her temporary residence. And she's a one-lifetime immortal. One-lifetime immortal? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The second stage of cultivation in the Pure Land was the graveyard deity, world breaker, sea destroyer, and one-lifetime immortal. One-lifetime immortal was the peak of the immortal realm. After breaking through one-lifetime immortal and experiencing the 5 declines, one could reach the one-lifetime rebirth realm. Currently, for them, one-lifetime immortal was like looking at the 9 heavens from the mortal world. It was impossible to achieve. Liangzi, it seems like our days in the God Fantasy sect are the days of immortals. Zhao Xiao patted Li Ziliang's shoulder and said in a self-mocking tone. Everything that happened today had the greatest impact on Li Ziliang. He fell into a daze and didn't speak. The atmosphere was gloomy. Linghu Sheng chuckled. However, there's no need to despair. Our 5 great clans and our former patriarchs didn't just sit and wait for death, dragging out an ignoble existence. What I'm about to say next is the main point. Reincarnators, calm down. Linghu Sheng's eyes shone with a bright light. Reincarnation was always accompanied by hope. Chapter 483. Linghu Sheng, the current head of the Linghu clan, was a great cultivator in the early stage of the Breaking Realm. Rushing out of the netherworld and breaking through the Tian Fu was his long-cherished wish. Therefore, he invited Sumo and the others to have a chat. Of course, it wasn't just to talk about the sad past, but also to change the reality of the netherworld realm. The netherworld realm needed power, and it needed people who could change everything. They had been waiting and looking for them. At this time, Ling Husheng looked at Sumo, Yu Wuji, and Yi Kansheng and said with a smile, "You three are reincarnators of the three realms. Actually, when you entered the Nether City, we already noticed your uniqueness. However, we weren't too sure. We didn't expect that you would end up in the Bliss Palace. This gave us a chance to confirm it. We didn't expect young Master Su to have an ancient token of the Netherworld. It seems that everything was arranged by fate." "Oh," Sumo smiled. He didn't deny the fact that the three of them were reincarnators. At the same time, he didn't expose the fact that Zhao Xiu was also a reincarnator. "Actually, we know all the cultivators who enter the Nether City. Theoretically, not everyone can enter the Netherworld City." Ling Husheng smiled faintly. "As for the reincarnators, we only discovered them about 100,000 years ago." 100,000 years ago? Sumo asked. "Yes." Ling Husheng nodded. 100,000 years ago, the lead brothers of the 5 great clans took some of their clansmen and escaped from the Netherworld. In the end, no one knew if they were dead or alive. Maybe that incident triggered something. It was that year that we discovered the reincarnators of the 3 realms. Before that, we never knew about the so-called reincarnators. Was that reincarnator the undying beauty Ling Huan? Sumo asked. "No." Ling Husheng smiled and shook his head. "We'll talk about the story of the undying beauty later. It's a long story. 100,000 years ago, the reincarnators of the 3 realms we discovered weren't her, but 2 other people who awakened at the same time." "Who were they?" Sumo asked. "The 5 great clans of the Nether City are the Tang, Li Mo, Bai, and Ling Hu. The other 2 reincarnators are from the Mo clan and the Bai clan respectively," Ling Husheng said. "Mo clan? By family? 2 reincarnators?" At this moment, Yi Kansheng raised his eyebrows slightly, because he thought of a possibility. "What are their names?" Yi Kansheng asked again. "Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangchun," Ling Husheng said. "Currently, they're the left and right protectors of Nether City. Protector Mo is at the 16th level of the 9 Nether, while Protector Bai is at the 17th level." "No." Yi Kansheng shook his head. "I'm not asking for their current names, but what they were called in the 3 Realms galaxy. Mo Wuhan, Bai Wuming." Ling Husheng looked at Yi Kansheng and said. During the 3 Realms era, there were cultivators from the Devil Continent's Azura world. In the Galaxy era, they gradually attained the Great Tao. "Young Master Yi, do you know them?" Mo Wuhan Bai Wuming. When Yi Kansheng heard that, he could not help but look at Sumo and said with a smile, "Demon King, we don't just know them, right?" Sumo laughed bitterly. "Of course, but they should be people you are familiar with. If I'm not wrong, they attained the Great Tao. Perhaps it was because of your help. Before the 3 realms were destroyed, Princess Azura once asked me to take care of them. After all, they're all friends of the Holy Father Amu." Yu Wuji sighed softly at the side. "It seems that many people in the 3 realms have reincarnated, but where is Amu? Why didn't he appear when the galaxy was destroyed?" Yu Wuji's sigh caused Sumo and the others' hearts to sink, because that could only mean one thing. Amu had fallen. Otherwise, there was no way Amu would not have appeared. "You are indeed old friends of the 2 protectors." Ling Husheng was rather excited. On the other hand, Ling Huan, who was dressed in white, carefully sized up Su Mo and the others. He did not know who they were in front of him. "May I know your names in the 3 Realms galaxy?" Ling Husheng asked. "I can inform the 2 protectors immediately." Sumo looked at Yi Kansheng and said to Ling Husheng, "Senior, you don't have to tell the others. You just need to inform them that Yi Xingbai has arrived, and they will understand." "Oh, good." Ling Husheng had never heard of Yi Xingbai's name, because to them, the 3 Realms galaxy was just a legend. Now, It was not easy for a Nether City cultivator like Ling Hu Sheng to remember his identity as a descendant of the Three Realms. It had been too long. If the reincarnators had not appeared, they were afraid that their inheritance of self-knowledge would not survive the passage of time. One day, all the people of 9 underworlds would not know where they came from. "Everyone, please wait," Ling Hu Sheng said and began to weave a seal. The early stage of World Breaker. Among the cultivators present, he was the one with the highest level. He put his hands in front of his chest and made a special seal. Whoosh! The entire room lit up, and the 3 candles were instantly drowned. ZZT, ZT, Z. Immediately, a pentagonal starlight appeared 3 feet in front of Ling Hu Sheng. Each starlight had an ancient seal on it, which read Tang, Liamo, Bai, and Ling. It seemed that they came from the 5 great families. Ling Hu Sheng's seal continued. It was a rather complicated hand seal. When he looked again, a token actually appeared between his eyebrows. The 9 underworlds' ancient token. Sumo and the others were stunned. However, if they looked closely, they would notice that this 9 underworlds' ancient token was slightly dimmer than Sumo's. In an instant, the token landed on the pentagonal starlight, occupying a corner. It was the method to open everything. Whoosh! The starlight spread out like a wave, but the starlight directly bypassed Su Mo and the others, not even affecting them in the slightest. Protectors. Ling Hu Sheng knelt on one knee and transmitted his voice respectfully. The reincarnator of the 3 realms, Yi Xingbai, requests an audience. Ling Hu Sheng was speaking to the pentagonal starlight. Looking again, the starlight shone with black and white light and disappeared instantly. It was a magical teleportation array. "Please don't take it to heart," Ling Hu Sheng said helplessly. In the entire Nether City, only the residences of the 5 great families can directly connect to the last 3 floors of Nether City. The other places in Nether City may not be safe. Once we leave this room, everything will be exposed. Sumo and the others nodded, expressing their understanding. At the same time, they felt how mentally and physically exhausted living in such an environment was. Millions of years of hellish torture. The pentagonal starlight gradually disappeared. The moment the pentagonal starlight disappeared, the entire residence was suddenly enveloped by a magical power. It was an extremely gentle power. Whoosh! At the same time, a black light and a white light appeared. 2 cultivators, one black and one white, appeared in front of everyone. Ling Hu Sheng did not expect that the 2 protectors would come in person and hurriedly knelt on one knee again. Ling Hu Sheng greets the 2 protectors. The 2 cultivators saw Yi Qianxing first. It was a strange feeling. They immediately confirmed that it was Yi Xingbai. "Brother Yi." Chapter 484. Some things would probably not be forgotten even after reincarnation. That was because they were hidden in the deepest part of the soul. As one awakened, everything would come back. For example, the brotherhood between Yi Qianxing and Mo Wuhan and Bai Wuming. At the last moment of the 3 realms, they were together, along with the divine dragon god Tianqing, standing on a mountain in the Azura realm, watching the battle between AMU and the Dark Lord. On that day, the half-black, half-white sun of the Azura demon continent gradually turned white. The karma was broken, and the 3 realms were reorganized. However, they had always been in the same galaxy. Yi Xingbai kept his promise to Shun Yin and took care of Mo Wuhan and Bai Wuming. Later on, the friendship between them was not inferior to the friendship between them and Amu. Mo Wuhan and Bai Wuming caught the last train to the eternal realm before the galaxy shattered. Otherwise, they would not have been able to reincarnate. Meeting an old friend in a foreign land was still a joy. Moreover, meeting again in a different world after reincarnation, Big Brother Yi. The cultivator in black was handsome, and there was a scholarly aura between his brows. At the same time, his eyes were deep and reserved. His face was relatively ruddy. His black robe made him look even more calm. As for the white-robed cultivator, he had very high cheekbones and slightly sunken eyes. At the same time, his face was very pale. It was a sickly pale, like a mortal who had not seen the sun for years, showing a kind of paleness like a vampire. Moreover, the cultivator in white's hair was actually half white and half black. The hostility on this cultivator in white was slightly heavy. Yi Qiansheng could not help but frown slightly, and then a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He looked at the cultivator in black and said, "Bai Wuming." The cultivator in black smiled and said, "Big brother Yi, my name is Mo Wenqing now. Mo Wuhan." Yi Qiansheng said to the cultivator in white. The cultivator in white also smiled, but his voice was a little hoarse. Bai Wangqin. Sumo was also slightly taken aback. When they heard the two people's names just now, they all thought that Mo Wenqing was Mo Wuhan and Bai Wuming was Bai Wangqin. However, they didn't expect their temperament to betray them the moment they met. Back then, Bai Wuming was good at scheming and was relatively gentle on the outside. On the other hand, Mo Wuhan had suffered too much, and the changes in the Valley of Hatred had caused his personality to become unyielding. The one in black was Bai Wuming, and the one in white was Mo Wuhan. This really surprised Yi Qiansheng. I didn't expect that we brothers would be able to meet again in the same place in 2 lifetimes. In the end, Yi Qiansheng also let out a long sigh, feeling quite emotional. This means that our love is not over yet, Mo Wenqing said with a smile. Then he looked at Sumo and the others and cupped his hand slightly. These fellow Taoists are... Hee. Yi Qiansheng laughed and said, "Guess who these two are?" Yi Qiansheng pointed at Sumo and Yu Wuji. This? Mo Wenqing stared blankly. He could recognize Yi Xingbai only because he knew that Yi Xingbai had come. However, he couldn't see through Sumo and Yu Wuji. Bai Wangqin also frowned slightly, unable to guess. Reincarnator? Mo Wenqing asked. That's right. 3 realms reincarnator. Yi Qiansheng smiled. At this moment, Yu Wuji smiled and didn't keep them in suspense. He cupped his hands towards Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangqin. It's an honor to meet you too. I'm Yu Wuji from the Galaxy Era. My name is Yu Qiumu. Yu Qiumu? Azure Demon's Woman. Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangqin's eyes flashed with surprise. Who in the 3 realms galaxy didn't know Azure Demon's Woman? Yu Qiumu, to them, had only heard of her name in their previous lives, but had never seen her. They didn't expect to see Yu Qiumu in 9 Netherworld City. Greetings, Palace Lord Yu. Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangqin hurriedly bowed. In fact, their current realms were far above Yu Qiumu. However, in their hearts, they respected Azure Demon. I dare not. Yu Wuji hurriedly returned the greeting again. This one, you will be even more surprised. Yi Qiansheng smiled and introduced Sumo to them again. Her background is much greater than mine. Yu Wuji also smiled. Moreover, you all know her. Oh, Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangqin couldn't help but be curious. In theory, in the Galaxy Era, only cultivators who reached the Eternal Realm could reincarnate. Of course, Eternal Realm cultivators were not easy to find, but there were many in the entire galaxy. Mo Wuhan and Bai Wuming knew even less. However, they really didn't recognize anyone with a background greater than Yu Qiumu. My name is Sumo. Sumo smiled and cupped her hands. Or, you can also call me Xiao Luo. What? Demon King? Nether Sovereign? Mo Wenqing's face was full of disbelief, and Bai Wangqin's pale face also flashed with a trace of blood. They didn't even dare to think of these names. Demon King, Xiao Luo? Or was this Nether Sovereign? Nether Sovereign, Xiao Luo, Murong Huang, to them, they couldn't distinguish at all. Just like Songhai and AMU. Who was who? In fact, they were all one. That's right. That's him. Yi Qiansheng nodded. Bai Wuming, Mo Wuhan. We pay our respects to the Demon King. Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangqin both said in unison, then actually knelt on both knees and kowtowed, extremely excited. That scene was quite moving, because the one they were kneeling to was not the former Nether Sovereign, nor the current Sumo, but Xiao Luo, who died for the galaxy. Xiao Luo died in battle for the galaxy. This was the memory of all the cultivators of the three realms. After AMU, the Demon King reigned supreme. That was the consensus of the galaxy-shattering era. Please rise. Sumo smiled bitterly in her heart, then hurriedly pulled them up. How can I accept this? At the same time, Sumo felt that the burden on her body had increased. Whether it was Yi Xingbai, Yu Qiumu, Bai Wuming, or Mo Wuhan, they all regarded Xiao Luo as their leader. The weight of that bow was very heavy, and the meaning was extremely profound. Mo Wenqing and Bai Wangqin never thought that they would meet the Demon King in Nine Nether. That was something they didn't even dare to dream of. Although the current Sumo was only in the undying middle stage, with the former ruler of the three realms, they didn't feel lonely and even full of strength. This was a kind of miracle, whether it was Mu or Xiao Luo. As long as they stood high up, they could gather the power of the three realms. This was the most powerful cultivation. In the eyes of many cultivators, AMU and Xiao Luo were the three realms themselves. In fact, this was indeed the case. These two, Mo Wenqing looked at Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang. You are both cultivators of Nether City. Greetings, protectors. Zhao Xiao and Li Ziliang both knelt on one knee. If it was before, they might have knelt unwillingly, but now that they knew the truth about the sacrifice, they sincerely knelt. The black and white protectors and the five great clans had actually been guarding Nine Nether. Mo Wenqing waved his hand and helped them up. These two are my special friends. Maybe there will be more surprises in the future, Sumo said to Mo Wenqing. However, it's not clear yet, but they are definitely reliable. Divine Fantasy, Sect Zhao Xiao. Divine Fantasy, Sect Li Ziliang. The two reported their names. Good. Mo Wenqing nodded and didn't ask anymore, then looked at Yi Kansheng and the others. This is not the place to talk. Everyone, follow me to the 16th floor. Let's go to the 17th floor. Bai Wangshan didn't speak much. The deeper the floor, the more protection. Good. Mo Wenqing nodded, then turned to Linghu Sheng and said, Linghu clan, please inform the 5 patriarchs to immediately gather in Protector Bai's cave residence on the 17th floor. Yes, Linghu Sheng responded. At this time, Bai Wangshan looked at the white-robed Linghu Huan, who had been silent, and smiled lightly. City Lord Linghu, you come too. When Sumo and the others heard this, their faces couldn't help but change. Chapter 485. City Lord Linghu. Sumo, Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, Zhao Xiao, and Li Ziliang all looked at the white-robed Linghu Huan. He was the city lord of Nether City? That was unbelievable. However, Sumo and the others remembered that the white-robed Linghu Huan was a cultivator who did not bow to the Nine Nether Ancient Order. According to the legends of Nine Nether, only the city lord and protectors could not bow to the Ancient Order. However, the white-robed Linghu Huan had a calm expression. Don't listen to Protector Bai's joke. The white-robed Linghu Huan smiled bitterly. If I really was the city lord, would I still be here? I'm just a special person. Huan, don't be too humble. Mo Wenqing smiled. Let's go. Let's talk on the 17th floor. Bai Wangchun also smiled. Everyone did not continue this topic. Su Mo and the others were a little confused as they listened. However, it was definitely not as simple as a joke. At this moment, Bai Wangchun had already formed a seal. The world-breaking power instantly spread out. Everyone was enveloped by that gentle power. There was no real passage between the last 3 floors of Nine Nether City and the 15th floor. Only sorcery could break through everything. Therefore, this was the most confidential place in Nether City. Whoosh, energy fluctuated. Su Mo and the others could only see black and white swirling before their eyes. Everything was changing. In an instant, they arrived at a cave abode that was not too big. That was the cave abode that Bai Wangchun cultivated in. The 17th floor of Nether City was completely different from the previous few floors. This was a place for pure cultivation, and it was not big. The entire 17th floor was probably only a few li in radius. At its center was a cave abode. Bai Wangchun was the only person in the cave abode. Now, the outer perimeter of the cave abode was designed for Bai Wangchun alone. Below it was the 18th floor of Nether City. The greatest secret of Nether City was hidden there. Bai Wangchun's cave abode was not big, but it was big enough for everyone to sit. They had just sat down when Bai Wangchun sensed the auras of the other family heads. Therefore, he waved a hand, and a light door formation appeared in the middle of the cave abode. Then, 4 cultivators walked out of the light door. Sumo and the others saw that they were 4 God Burial Realm cultivators. That was definitely the strongest force in Nether City. The first was a middle-aged cultivator. Great Circle of the Buried Gods. He was tall and slender, dressed in a black robe. His face was as white as jade, and his 7-inch long beard floated in front of his chest. He looked like an immortal. The second one was also a middle-aged cultivator. Great Circle of the Buried Gods. However, he was slightly plump and wore a dark gray robe. His face was slightly yellow. Her eyes were bright, giving people a feeling that she was extremely shrewd. The third one was an old man. Early stage break world. The old man gave off a similar feeling to Ling Husheng. He was dressed in green, but his face was old. However, his eyes were very clear and not turbid. From the looks of it, he had a much longer lifespan than Ling Husheng. The fourth was actually a female cultivator. Middle stage break world. This was the cultivator with the highest cultivation among the 5 clan heads. That female cultivator was middle-aged, but she still retained her charm. Between her eyebrows, there was a vertical red line. He looked murderous. She gave off a very dignified aura. These 4 plus Ling Husheng were the clan heads of the 5 great clans of Nether City. Normally, the Black and White Protectors didn't participate in the affairs of Nether City. The Council of Elders was just a decoration. The clan heads of the 5 great clans were the ones in charge of Nether City. Now, it could be said that the strongest force in the entire Netherworld realm was gathered on the 17th floor of Nether City. Greetings, Protectors. The 4 clan heads knelt on one knee and said in unison, "Everyone, please rise." The one who spoke was still Mo Wenqing. This was the same as back in the 3 realms. Bai Wuming had always been better at this kind of thing. Then, Mo Wenqing introduced Sumo and the others one by one. The middle-aged cultivator dressed in black with a long beard was the Mo clan head, Mo Zixian. The slightly plump cultivator dressed in gray was the Li clan head, Li Yuntian. The old man dressed in green was the Bai clan head, Bai Daiwen. And the female cultivator with the highest cultivation was the Tang clan head, Tang Wan-er. Sumo and the others greeted them one by one. When the 4 great clans heard about the true identity of Sumo and the others, their eyes were filled with hope and expectation. They were the same as Ling Husheng. Deep down, they all believed that they were people of the 3 realms galaxy. Greetings, everyone. For a moment, the 4 great clans didn't know how to address them. Yi Kansheng hurriedly said, "Seniors, there's no need to be so polite. The so-called reincarnation refers to the past. Right now, we only talk about the future, not the past. So, let's talk about cultivation. Everyone, no need to be so formal." Mo Wenqing also smiled. Currently, everyone's identity was a little special. So, in the end, they sat according to the host and guest, and were relatively casual. Everyone, Mo Wenqing looked at the 5 clan heads of Nether City, and said in a slow tone, "Today, I think you can already guess the reason why I called you here. The Netherworld realm has already endured for millions of years. Now, we no longer have many ways to retreat. Soul washers and sacrificial sacrificers can be found everywhere." Mo Wenqing laughed bitterly. "I won't hide it from you all. If not for the fact that you all have the 9 underworlds ancient order, I would not have been able to kill you all. If not for the Netherworld ancient order, I don't dare to believe you. Because I don't know if your souls have already been washed." The 5 clan heads looked at each other and smiled helplessly. They understood that feeling the best, because every single one of them had that feeling. They didn't dare to casually trust any cultivator in their clan, even if it was the person closest to you. God's soul washing was often done unknowingly. God wouldn't tell you who became the sacrificial offering. So, it was very possible that you were surrounded by people who could kill you at any time. In Nether City, the power of God was like blood vessels spreading everywhere. That kind of pressure made every clan head feel very pained. Protector MO, we also don't want to endure anymore. The green robe by clan head by Dai once said. That's right. The slightly plumply clan head Li Yun Tian sighed. Protectors, I don't want the Li clan's incident to repeat itself. But the longer it goes on, the more disadvantageous it is for us. I won't hide it from everyone. Sometimes, even I can't control myself. When will these days come to an end? The Mo clan head Mo Zishian didn't say anything, but he stroked his long beard and solemnly nodded. His attitude was very clear. Hee hee. Tang Wanner laughed. I also don't want to wait any longer. Luckily, we can fight to the death and have a good time. If we die in battle, our original sins will be erased. This old man doesn't have much lifespan left, Ling Hu Sheng said. Naturally, I don't want to wait any longer. The 5 clan heads all expressed their opinions. Finally, Mo, Wenqing, and Bai Wangshun looked at each other and nodded their heads. Then, the 2 of them looked at the white-robed Ling Hu Huan. Following that, the 5 clan heads also looked at the white-robed Ling Hu Huan. Sumo and the others were somewhat perplexed. What were the Nether City cultivators doing? Why were they looking at the white-robed Ling Hu Huan? At this time, the white-robed Ling Hu Huan looked at the clan heads and protectors, then let out a long sigh. Since it's like this, then let's gather the 7 Netherworld's ancient tokens and summon the power to awaken her. It was indeed time for everything to begin. Chapter 486. Gather all the ancient tokens, summon the power, and awaken her? Sumo and the rest stared blankly at Ling Hu Huan, Mo Wenqing, Bai Wangshun, and the rest. What did these words mean? They all had the same question. Mo Wenqing looked at Ling Hu Sheng and smiled. Didn't you tell them just now? I haven't finished, Ling Hu Sheng said. Hee hee. Mo Wenqing laughed. Then continue. The undying beauty is our 9 Nether's greatest secret. All right. Ling Hu Sheng nodded and looked at Sumo and the rest. Just now on the 16th floor, I haven't finished telling you about the story of the Nether City. I'll continue. I'm all ears. Sumo smiled. The Pure Land God's sacrificial contract was to control the descendants of the 3 realms. There's no doubt about this. However, the ancestral masters still had some tricks up their sleeves. A smile appeared on Ling Hu Sheng's face. So, we didn't just sit and wait for death. The ancestral masters secretly gathered their power and forged 7 Nether ancient tokens. Every ancient medallion contained the greatest power of Nether City. That was because the patriarchs of that generation had sealed the most powerful spirits and powers of their clans within it. This power could resist the power of soul cleansing. Therefore, those who held the 9 Nether ancient token were trustworthy cultivators. At the same time, they passed down the secret arts. In the entire 9 Nether, only the 2 guardians and the city lord could open the seal. The 5 great clans controlled the tokens, while the guardians and the city lord had the secret arts. Sumo said, this was a precaution and a way to balance each other. That's right, Ling Hu Sheng said, because at that time, the ancestral masters didn't dare to predict the future. No one could predict the future of the 9 Nether. How did the 5 great clans distribute the 7 tokens? Sumo said, hee hee, this is indeed a problem. Actually, it's also a key. Ling Hu Sheng smiled. At that time, a total of 7 ancient tokens were forged. The 5 great clans each had one. They were named according to the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The remaining 2 shall be named the yin-yang tokens. Back then, the patriarchs chose the 2 most powerful cultivators outside of the 5 great clans to be the guardians of the yin-yang token. Moreover, let them be passed down from generation to generation outside of the 5 great clans. The 9 Nether Ancient token can actually absorb souls. Every generation's Ancient Medallion Protector would seal their soul power into the Ancient Medallion before passing it on to the next Patriarch. Therefore, the bloodline attributes in the 5 Elements Ancient Order are extremely pure. The bloodline attribute of the Yin-Yang Ancient Medallion is a fusion of the 100 clans. The bloodline of each generation's inheritor is different. Is the Yin-Yang Ancient token in my hand? Sumo asked. That's right. The token in your hand is the Yin token. Linghu Sheng said. Actually, you'll notice that its color is darker. That is the result of the fusion of different bloodline powers. Oh. Sumo took out her ancient token and looked at it carefully. Compared to Linghu Sheng's token, the color was indeed different. Senior, where's the Yang token? Haha, the Yin token came from Linghu He Huan, so of course the Yang token is in his hands as well. Linghu Sheng gestured at the white-robed Linghu He Huan. The white-robed Linghu He Huan opened his hand, and a medallion that was identical to the one Sumo had appeared in his hand. The 9 Nether Yang token. The white-robed Linghu He Huan smiled faintly. Sumo was stunned. She couldn't understand what was going on. Yi Kansheng and the others didn't know what was going on either. Ha! Linghu Sheng chuckled. Everyone, listen to me. The 5 great clans' 5 elements, ancient medallions, have been passed down from generation to generation. Moreover, we've been patient, so nothing has happened. All 5 of the ancient medallions are under our control. However, the other 2 Yin-Yang ancient medallions encountered some problems. For the first 10,000 years, the Yin-Yang ancient medallion holders maintained contact with Nether City. However, something went wrong in that generation. First, there was no news of the Yang medallion holder for tens of thousands of years. Then, the Yin medallion holder disappeared without a trace. We once sent out many cultivators to search the entire 9 Nether. Even the former left and right enforcers personally went out, but there was no news. Linghu Sheng sighed softly at this point. At that time, everyone was in despair. The ancestors of Nether City even thought that the god of Pure Land had discovered the secret of the 9 Nether Ancient Medallion. However, 1,000,000 years ago, there was a sudden turn of events. A young cultivator came to Nether City. He broke through the Bliss Palace like a hot knife through butter and arrived at the bottom of Nether City, just like you guys. However, there were no reincarnators of the 3 realms at that time. However, that cultivator had the Yin-Yang dual medallion. Linghu Sheng's tone was filled with surprise. Although he was talking about the past, it was unimaginable that the Yin-Yang dual medallion was in the hands of a single person. Who is he? Sumo asked. Actually, we really don't know. Linghu Sheng shook his head and looked at Mo, Wenqing, and Bai Wangqin. Unfortunately, they also shook their heads helplessly. His true identity is still a mystery to this day. Linghu Sheng smiled at Linghu He Huan. That's because some people don't even know who they are. Linghu He Huan smiled bitterly. It seemed that everything Linghu Sheng said was related to him. Now, what we know is that the young cultivator said his surname was Mu. At that time, his cultivation was already at the Sea Annihilation realm. He was definitely the strongest in 9 Nether. Linghu Sheng said. His surname was Mu? Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Back then, Linghu He Huan had also told her that his surname was Mu. I'm afraid there are no Sea Annihilation realm cultivators in the entire 9 Nether, or even the Pure Land. The people from Tianfu City probably didn't belong to the Pure Land. Linghu Sheng continued. He came with 2 9 Nether ancient medallions and was invincible. Therefore, after the old city lord ascended, that young cultivator succeeded as the city lord of 9 Nether City. It said that everything was normal for the first 100,000 years. Linghu Sheng smiled helplessly. However, what happened after that gradually became strange. In fact, the Guardians and the City Lord don't need to show up for the affairs of 9 Nether City. It's normal for them to go into seclusion for hundreds or even thousands of years. However, that city lord actually went into seclusion for 10,000 years. Moreover, something unimaginable has happened to the city lord. Ling Husheng looked a little nervous. In fact, when he said all this, the expressions of the surrounding patriarchs became a little serious. Mo Wenqing and Bai Wuchen also frowned slightly. Even now, they couldn't explain this matter clearly. What happened? Sumo asked curiously. Split. Ling Husheng raised his eyebrows, as if he had spent a lot of effort to say those two words. Split? Sumo, Yi Kansheng, and the others were stunned. What split? Not long after the city lord went into seclusion, he split into another person. Ling Husheng said slowly, it's not an ordinary clone, but a kind of split. That's because the first one will die soon. That kind of magical ability allows him to live almost forever. Chapter 487. Eternal Life? Sumo was very sensitive to this term. That was the path AMU had chosen for the three realms back then. However, was there really such a thing as eternal life in this world? It was the first time even the former Nether Sovereign had heard of a split inheritance. How could a hidden technique be so mysterious? What happened after that? Sumo asked again. He knew that Ling Husheng's story must have a continuation. After that, this split inheritance continued for hundreds of thousands of years. The City Lord of Nether City has never changed. The Protectors have been passed down from generation to generation, and the City Lord has never changed. Ling Husheng smiled. This was originally a good thing. Although City Lord Mu would go into seclusion every time there was a split inheritance, and his cultivation seemed to fluctuate, his realm has always been improving. The last time City Lord Mu came out of seclusion, he was said to have reached the perfected Sea Destroyer realm. But Ling Husheng's words changed. Sumo and the others understood that an unforeseen event had come. Ling Husheng smiled bitterly, then looked at Mo Wenqing, Bai Wangchun, and the white-robed Ling Hu Hihuan. His eyes seemed to be asking for instructions. Speak, Mo Wenqing said. The white-robed Ling Hu Hihuan shook his head helplessly. During the last split inheritance, 100,000 years ago, something seemed to have happened. Ling Husheng's eyes showed a look of reminiscence. Back then, I had just become the head of the Ling Hu clan. The day the city lord came out of seclusion. At that time, the 5 great clans and 2 protectors were waiting on the 18th floor. However, we did not see City Lord Mu. A trace of shock flashed in Ling Husheng's eyes. Then what did you see? Sumo asked. When a switch was switched, a young City Lord Mu would walk out. Then, there was an old City Lord on his last breath. That was the completion of the inheritance. But that time, Ling Husheng took a deep breath. He had seen everything with his own eyes. That time, after the switch was switched, there was only a little boy who looked to be 8 or 9 months old, lying naked on the ground, crying. Beside him was the 9 Nether Yang token. And in the middle of the City Lord's immortal cave, there's a cultivator who seems to be City Lord Mu sitting cross-legged. However, half of his body was still the same as before, but it was already withered, without any vitality. On the other side, he is full of vitality, but his appearance has already undergone a great change. City Lord Mu was originally a male cultivator. Ling Husheng sighed. However, on that day, the remaining half of the City Lord's body turned into a woman's. Female, Sumo, Yi Kansheng, Yu Wuji, Zhao Xiao, and Li Ziliang were all stunned. Splitting the inheritance, a male body becoming a female body. Such a thing was truly unheard of. What's going on? Sumo asked again. Ling Husheng, shook his head. Everything that happened that day is still a mystery. In the end, the withered City Lord Mu opened his mouth to speak. Only his voice was weak, not all that clear. At that time, he pointed at the boy and said that he would appoint this boy as the City Lord and enter the Ling Hu Gate, and that his name was Hihuan. Immediately, he sealed his cave residence and fell into a deep sleep, waiting for the 7 tokens to come together to awaken him. Yin and Yang unite. awaken the cycle of reincarnation. For all eternity, forgive me for my sins. Those were City Lord Mu's last words. Ling Hu Sheng sighed. Immediately after, I saw with my own eyes that City Lord Mu had completely transformed into a woman's body, lying quietly in the cave residence and falling into a deep sleep. The cave residence gradually closed. In the end, we could only carry that boy out, Ling Hu Sheng said. Brother Yihuan, are you that boy? Sumo looked at the white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan. That's right. The white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan said helplessly. Unfortunately, I don't have any memories. My memories start from the Ling Hu clan. Everything, just like you, was informed by the clan lord. Is City Lord Mu a reincarnator? Sumo asked again. According to our conjecture, he might be. The one who spoke was Mo Wenqing. However, in the entire galaxy, there is no one who cultivates in that kind of cultivation technique, splitting the inheritance. Sumo nodded. There was no technique in the three realms that he did not know, but definitely not splitting the inheritance. Moreover, from Ling Hu Sheng's description, it was not just splitting the inheritance, but also the change of gender and yin and yang. Yin and yang unite. Sumo recalled the black-robed puppet in Bliss Palace and asked, Senior Ling Hu, who created the black-robed puppet in Bliss Palace's Hall of Immortal Desire? The black-robed puppet? Ling Hu Sheng looked at the white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan. It was left behind by the city lord. The white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan said, Unfortunately, you destroyed it. It was a late-stage soul-burying realm puppet. Was it a man or a woman? Sumo asked. A man or a woman? The white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan smiled. It's just a puppet. Why would it be a man or a woman? Sumo looked at the white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan with a strange expression. Brother Yihuan, are you a man? The white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan frowned and said angrily, I am. If you don't believe me, you can verify my identity. Hee. Sumo waved her hand and smiled. There's no need for that. Actually, it's just that, Sumo said with a straight face. There are many things in the Nether City that give off an indistinguishable feeling of yin and yang. Perhaps City Lord Mu wasn't a real male cultivator back then, but a being of yin and yang. Perhaps something went wrong during the final split, and he turned into a man and a woman in order to achieve a breakthrough. Mo Wenqing nodded. That's possible. Something must have gone wrong during the final split of the inheritance. Otherwise, Yihuan wouldn't have lost all his memories. He might even be an ordinary cultivator. The others nodded as well. This was the consensus they had all reached over the years. But how do you explain the other Ling Hu Yihuan? The white-robed Ling Hu Yihuan frowned. After all, the Li brothers escaped from the Nine Hells 100,000 years ago. We didn't send any cultivators to hunt them down, nor did we receive any orders from the city lord. The Bliss Palace only exists in the Nine Hells. What? Sumo was stunned. That's right. Mo Wenqing nodded. Yihuan is right. When the Li brothers escaped from the Nine Hells, we didn't hunt them down. After all, the pain of the Nine Hells made them lose hope. Not everyone is willing to bear the fate of a sacrifice. After escaping from the Nine Hells, they're no longer cultivators of the Nether City. Their life and death have nothing to do with us. The shame of the Li family. The Li family's master, Li Yuntian, snorted coldly. Their family records have long been erased. They are no longer disciples of the Li family. Sumo shook her head when she heard that. Li Yuanyi, Li Yuanshu, and the 300 nascent soul cultivators are all dead. Everyone, what you're saying is completely different from what I heard from Ling Hu Yihuan on the White Bones mainland. It seems like there's something more to this. Mo Wenqing and the others frowned. Who is that Ling Hu Yihuan? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.